ಮಡಿಲೋಳಿರಿಸು ಬಡವ ಬಳಲಿ ಹೋದೆ ಕಂಡು ಭೌಮರೂಪವ ಕರುಣೆ ತೋರಿ ಕರದಿ ಪಿಡಿದು ಮಡಿಲೋಳಿರಿಸು ಕಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನುಳಿದಿದೆ ತಾಯೇ ಭಾವರಾಗವ ಸಟೆಗೆಲ್ಲವೂ ಸರಸ್ವತಿ ತಾಂತಳೆದು ಜೀವವ ಕಟೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನುಳಿದಿದೆ ತಾಯೇ ತಾಯೇ ತಾಯೇ.
Thank you, Srimati Nagashri Narayan. We would like to offer our gratitude to Sri Satish Karan sir for inaugurating the event for us. Kindly come on to the podium to receive a small token of gratitude from our side. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this morning. It is time to formally welcome all our esteemed guests who have gracefully accepted our request to be observers for all the papers that will be presented here today. A hearty welcome to Srimati Tejaswini, Sri Arun Srinivasan, and Sri Datta Kumar. I think they deserve a big round of applause because they're going to sail through the whole day with us. Welcome to the audience who have assembled here to witness this event. Welcome to the entire team of India Knowledge Center, Nupra Bhramari, and Nrtya-Silpa-Yatras. As the name Nrtya-Silpa-Yatras suggests, the underlying purpose was to see the sculptures and temple architectures from an artist's eyes. But then, fortunately, all artists are not cut from the same fabric and hence do not fit into a monotonous template. Today, we are going to celebrate that diversity and vibrancy. You will be treated to presentations of eclectic topics based on the research. Let me quickly explain the process that was followed by all the interns. Temples built or maintained and developed by the Vijayanagara kings in Karnataka were visited through the course, not all of them, a select few. This included the Bhoganandishwara temple at the foothills of Nandi, Alsuru Someshwara temple in the city of Bangalore, Someshwara temple, Kurudumalai Ganesha temple, Kolaramma temple, Avani temple complex in the district of Kolar, Lepakshi temple in Anantapur district of Andhra Pradesh. The objective of these visits was to study in depth the subject chosen by the particular intern using relevant primary sources in the form of treatises and secondary sources in the form of books, journals, e-journals, reports, articles published in various books and websites, and or interviewing the masters on the particular subject. The research methodology used is that of analytical and observational types of the qualitative methodology. This course stands out from the rest because the study was not confined to that of sculptures alone, but interdependency of various art forms was explored, keeping the temples as a base. Though studying these temples in the stipulated amount of time period did look like a limitation at the beginning, it is with pride I say that the interns have put their heart and soul into it and given their best. Review of literature was done by all the participants to establish the authenticity of their research. So without much ado, let us go to our first paper presentation for the day by Kumari Sahana ji on hybrid mythical beings connecting the distant dots. Kumari Sahana has been training under Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha at Nirmiti since 2013. A recipient of student scholarship awarded by Karnataka government, she has also completed her Bachelor in Fine Arts in Bharatnatyam, junior and senior exams from KSEEB and many exams from Akhila Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya Mandal. She has presented a dance research paper for Aran International e-Journal. She is currently working as a data scientist and is passionately indulging herself in different facets of dance. We welcome Sahana ji.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaskara. A very good morning to one and all. I am Sahanaji, student of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanath and an intern of Nrtya-Silpa-Yatras conducted by Nupura Brahmari. My topic for today's presentation is hybrid mythical beings connecting the distant dots. Mythical beings. All the beings associated to mythology are said to be mythical. Mythology has a very symbolic value. It has a supernatural framework to interpret natural events in order to explain the nature of the universe and humanity. Mythical beings have been mentioned right from the Vedas and Puranas. Some of the well known mythical beings are Airavata, Chakora, Garuda, Vasuki, Ashwins, Makara, Hamsa, etc. Somadeva's Katha Saritsagara mentions 19 different kinds of mythical beings. A few of them are Apsaras, Asuras, Daityas, Danavas, Kushmandas, Kinnaras, Vidyadharas, etc. Manasara, an ancient Sanskrit treatise on Vastu and Shilpa Shastra, mentions 5 different kinds of mythical beings: Yakshas, Vidyadharas, Rakshasas, Kinnaras, and Garuda. Coming to the significance of these, since they are mentioned in the mythologies through different stories, they instill a firm belief in the triumph of good over evil. They inspire the common people to live a dharmic lifestyle and gives them an optimistic outlook on life. They also rekindle an essence of wonder and deepen a person's faith. Hybrid mythical beings. The term hybrid means a combination of different elements. So, hybrid mythical beings are a fusion of different creatures. Some of the well known hybrid mythical beings are Kinnaras, which are half human, half bird, Vyagrapada, who's half human, half tiger, and Mahishasura, who's the hybrid form of a buffalo and a man. So they don't just take the roles of protagonists or antagonists in the stories, but they also take up the roles of supporting characters such as Vahanas and servants. For example, Nandi, Garuda, Vanaras, Daksha, Navagunjara, etc. The reasons behind them getting such forms might be due to accidents, through a curse, or to serve a bigger purpose. So, now I'll be discussing about the different mythical being sculptures found in the selected temples of Vijayanagara. Temples not only embody an essence of communion with the divinity, but they also mirror a plethora of artistic, architectural, historical, geographic, social, and political testimonies. Whether it is the life size sculptures etched on different huge pillars or the intricately carved panels, the sculpture of mythical beings do not fail in evoking intriguing thoughts in the minds of the viewer. The most commonly found such sculptures are that of Yalis. Yalis are part lion, part elephant, and part horse. They're said to have the ferociousness of a lion, the strength of an elephant, and the speed of a horse. It is the Vahana of Buddha. Bhuvanadeva's Aparajita Pracha talks about 16 different kinds of Vyalis called as the Shodasha Vyalas. So Vyala is also named as Virala in texts such as Shilpa Prakasha and Shilpa Sarini. Coming to their significance, they define open spaces and are usually found near the entrance of the temples, which is why they're known as the guardians of the temple. They're also seen etched on huge pillars, which symbolizes their immense strength in carrying the entire load. Here we can see 3 pictures of different Yali sculptures found in temples. The first and third show Simha Vyala. The second one shows Gaja Vyala. The first and second are standing on a crouching elephant, whereas the third one is standing on a human figure. They're also vastly seen standing on Makara, which is yet another mythical being. The gigantic size of this creature is apparent when we compare the ratio of the human on top of it to the actual creature. The angle of deflection of the human shows the immense strength required to control these ferocious creatures. It is symbolic to a man's struggle against the rampant forces of nature. We could also consider it to be a metaphor to human tenacity to fight powerful adversaries or human arrogance to dominate the strongest fictional animals of their own creation. So, different people might interpret them differently, but what is actually intriguing is the intent of the sculptor behind it. In this particular study, I've also done a comparative study of Hindu mythical beings with the ones found in other cultures, which reveals a plethora of shared traits and themes. Here we can see the pictures of Minoan genii and Kochasri, who belong to the Minoan civilization and Thailand, respectively. We can see a lot of physical similarities between these and the Yalis. You can also see a Yali panel found in the temples of Vijayanagara, which is very similar to a cylinder seal of the Minoan genii. Next, we have the Kinnara and the Kinnari, who are celestial musicians and lovers who are part human and part bird. They're very closely associated to music and are always seen with the Kinnari Veene. They are similar to Alkonost and Siren, which are Russian birds. So these are not just similar physically, but Alkonost and Siren are also associated to music. The music created by Alkonost is so good that people forget all their sorrows, and Siren foretells future through her music. Apart from these, in Thailand and Cambodia, we often see kinnaras and kinnaris as decorations in temples. In Java and Indonesia, they're often depicted regarding the divine tree that is Kalpataru. Burmese depiction of kinnaris are unique as their breasts are covered, and kinnaras in Sari temple, Indonesia, have wings on their back, which makes them look like angels of the Western culture. We next have Purushamruga, who's a staunch Shiva Bhakta with human upper half and lion lower half. This is usually confused with Vyagrapada, who is half human and half tiger. This is similar to Sphinx of Egypt and Shedu of Assyria. Here we can see the structure which is called the chain of destruction. Here we can see Gandaberunda, whose strength is glorified as it is consuming the prey. Gandaberunda, who is the emblem of the warriors of Mysore, continues to be the state emblem of Karnataka. Similarly, the Russian imperial eagle and the double-headed eagle of Turkey also are the emblems of certain departments of their particular countries. We next have Navagunjara, which is a very important type of the Kautuhalas. Kautuhalas are mythical beings which are a combination of 5 different animals. Here, Navagunjara is a hybrid form of 5 animals which are bull, lion, tiger, horse, and elephant, and 2 birds, that is the cock and peacock. The first sculpture shows Navagunjara. The second is that of Gajapakshi. As the name says, it is half elephant and half bird. This is similar to the Thailand mythical being, which is Hatsadiling. Hatsadiling has the head of the lion, the trunk of an elephant, the comb of a cock, and the wings of a bird. We can next see Devadatta, which is part horse and part bird. This is physically similar to Cholima of Korea, Pegasus of Greece, and Tulpar of Turkey. The next interesting being is the Garuda. Here we can see the anthropomorphic form of Garuda holding Lord Vishnu on his hands. According to Manasara, Garuda has the upper half of a man, whereas the lower half has avian creatures. Karura, a mythical being from Japan, the transliteration of Karura is nothing but Garuda. So this is directly inspired from the Indian mythical being Garuda. The only difference is that Karura has the upper half of a man and the lower half of a bird. Next, we have Daksha, who is half goat and half human. According to mythology, Daksha was beheaded by Shiva in the form of Virabhadra, after which the goat's head was replaced. This is physically similar to Faun, which is from Rome and Greece mythology. Next, we can see sculptures of Nandi and Tumburu. This is from the Natya Mantapa of Lepakshi, where Nandi is seen playing the mridangam and Tumburu the veene to the dancing Lord Shiva. Sadly, the sculpture of Nandi is broken. Nandi, who is a half bull, half human, is similar to Minotaur of Greece. And Tumburu, who is half horse and half human, is similar to Tikbalang of Philippines. Every region has a set of such mythical characters which connect to their religious, historical, and social beliefs. It is indeed mesmerizing to see such connections between creatures of such distant lands. Indian mythical beings that can be seen right from the Vedas and Puranas are continually affecting contemporary art, literature, theatre, movies, games, toys, and others. Here we can see the representation of Nandi, Mahishasura, Daksha, Garuda, and Jatayu in different animated movies and videos. Excuse me. The prevalence of various mythical being based stories and beliefs in current world prove that these age-old elements have fostered a robust sense of fascination in the people's minds. Coming to the conclusion, in the temples of Vijayanagara, yalis are the most prominently seen sculptures engraved on huge pillars. Apart from these, kinnaras and kinnaris and Garuda is also widely seen. The sculptures of Purusha Mriga is usually seen in Shaivism prominent temples. So, coming to the reason behind these, it could be true accounts of the real past or the fanciful exaggerations of storytellers. It could also be artistic imagination, suggestive of combining the best features of different creatures. So, according to me, there are numerous other additional depictions of mythical beings. Some of them are described in the mythology, whereas the others remain cryptic till date. An insight into these is not just refreshing and intriguing, but lingers with one to explore more. To me, these sculptures seem like inspirations, pushing people to break the barriers of their own limitations and become better versions of themselves by ingraining positives from everyone around. Thank you.
At the cost of looking odd, I will still continue standing on this dais down. I would like to request all those who have entered now and who are not the interns of the symposium to kindly go and register yourselves at the out desk so that you can avail the facility of the certificate that you'll be getting. If you've not already registered your name, there is a dais outside. Kindly go and do the needful. What a lovely presentation. An excellent compilation of mythical beings from not just the Vijayanagara temples that we have visited, but also from the other cultures across the world. Research is supposed to do that, where it instigates you to go on exploring more and more and more until you feel satiated, which would probably never happen. Moving on, we now have Kumari Shravya K talking about different ways of hairdos, the Kesha Lankara as seen in sculptures of Vijayanagara temples. Shravya is currently studying in 2nd PU in Jyoti College and has been learning Kalakshetra Bani of Bharatanatyam dance since the age of 8 from Dr. Dvarita Vishwanatha. She's also been a student of Carnatic classical music. Shravya has completed various levels of Gandharva exams and Bharatanatyam junior and senior exams conducted by KCEB. She has completed a certificate course on Natya Alankara organized by Nupra Brahmari. Besides dance and music, she has interest in hosting dance programs. We now welcome Shravya K.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Namaste. Myself Shravya, disciple of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha and an intern of Nrtya-Silpa-Yatra conducted by Nupura Brahmari. I shall be presenting Keshalankara scene and sculptures of Vijayanagara temples. What is Keshalankara? Kesha means hair and Alankara is to dress up. So Kesha Alankara in total are different hairstyles found in various sculptures and all other beings. Kesha Alankara falls under the Aharya Abhinaya, which is a type of Abhinaya, which means to express. The combination of costume, makeup, hairstyles, and other decorative objects together form Aharya Abhinaya. Sage Bharata in his Natya Shastra defines Aharya Abhinaya as Nepatya Vidhi, meaning backstage preparation. There are many such textual references, such as Natya Shastra by Bharata Muni and Abhinaya Darpanam by Nandikeshwara, being two important books for Bharatnatyam. Among which the Apatra Lakshana of Abhinaya Darpana states Pushpakshi Keshahinacha Pinoshti Lambitastani, which means the person with no hair or Keshahina is not capable or qualified to be a dancer or a heroine. We move on to importance of Kesha shown in poetry. There are many poetries which has the importance of hairstyles, among which Srimad Valmiki Ramayana. I have taken two instances as examples among many. The first verse states, Kakapakshadharam Veeram Jeshtameda Tumarasi, which means Vishwamitra, while asking Dasharatha to send the boy with Kakapaksha, the boy with hair till the ears. This shows that Rama had Kakapaksha as his hairstyle, and the second verse which states Ekaveni Dhrida Badva Gata Satveva Kimnari. This means Manthara, while misguiding Kaikeyi to stop the Pattabhisheka of Rama, says the verse, which means she had tightly fastened her hair as a single braid or Ekaveni, meaning single braid. Next, we have Veni Samharam, a poetry written by Bhattanarayana, which tells us the importance of the title Veni Samharam and how Draupadi's hair led to destruction. Importance of Kesha or hairstyles shown in poetry with relevance to dance. There are many poetries which have been incorporated in dance, among which Chudamani Pradhanam and Panchali Shapatham are dance dramas from Kalakshetra, in which Chudamani Pradhanam, a poetry of Ramayana, states that we can see Sita trying to strangle herself with her long braid, and Panchali Shapatham is a poetry written by Mahakavi Subramanyam Bharatiyar, which is incorporated as a dance drama in which we can see Panchali taking the oath to leave her hair open until she seeks revenge. Keshalankara and personality shown through the hairstyles of god and goddesses. We can see many hairstyles which shows us personality, and I shall be taking the examples of god and goddesses. We start with Kali, whose hair is untied, which shows wild and uncivilized, a person who is wild and uncivilized. We have Durga, whose hair is well combed and which is a sign of civilization, but her hair is still unlimited. So it can be said that Durga can transform into Kali, or Kali can also be transformed into Durga. We have Parvati, who has her hair well combed and neatly tied, which is a sign of restraint and tameness. She's a mother and a wife who is tied up by household chores. We have Lakshmi and Saraswati, who have their hair well combed and neat but not tied. Lord Krishna, who has curly hair, and like his hair, He's said to have never said anything of direct significance. His speech is always said to be indirect. We have Lord Shiva, who has matted hair, signifies deep control over mind and senses. Significance of Kesha Lankara in dance compositions. Dance compositions which have been composed decades and centuries ago have we can see um, many many hairstyles as importance. We have the first is very famous Shabdam, Ayashariyar, composed by Tanjavur Arunachala Netvanar, which has the verse in its second stanza, Shurundirunda Akulalgal Ascendida Sundara Mukham Tulangida, meaning Lord Krishna having his hair curly. It sways in the direction of the wind. And next we have Bhamakalapam, which is the main composition of Kuchipudi. It is a narrative of Satyabhama describing herself and her undying love for Lord Krishna. She distinctly shows off her hair and seen entering the stage with her long braid, which reflects her pride in it. Kesha Lankara in sculptures. This study has been done based on limited temple visits, and the various hairstyles that are found here are from the few temples that we have visited. We start with Kesha Lankara in women. Dwarapalikas. Dwarapalikas are usually seen with a bun, and they are seen at the entrance of the temple, and they are most of the time shown with a bun at the back. Some other sculptures with the same hairstyle. We have sculpture holding a mirror, the Chamarada Kanye, a dancer, and another sculpture. The first sculpture and the third sculpture, which is a girl holding a mirror, and the third sculpture, which is a dancer, can be considered as having decorated buns, as they have jewels in ornaments on themselves, and can be seen getting dressed or performing. The other two can be considered as undecorated buns. We have a bun kind of a knot which is not found everywhere. It could be said that it is not the most common sculpture found in the temples that we have visited. Next, we have open hair. Open hair could be considered as a hairstyle. The first sculpture that we see is a female sculpture into deep thinking. This could be also said that she is a Virohotkantita Naika from the Ashtavida or Avastha Naikas, who is into deep thinking and longing for her Nayaka. The next sculpture that we have is a dressing sculpture getting dressed. Here also we can see a sculpture getting dressed. This could also be an indication of the Vasaka Sajjika Nayaka who is getting dressed in order to see her Nayaka. This sculpture can be seen with a long braid, and we have a huntress who is a Dwarapalika having a long braid. Dwarapalikas with long braid are not found commonly. Here, there could be an analysis that the classical dance forms that are being used in today's date, such as Bharatnatyam, Kuchipudi, and Mohiniyattam, the hairstyles that are found is incorporated into these classical dance forms. For example, we have Bharatnatyam, where we use long braid and bun at the back. We have Kuchipudi dance form, where we have the long braid is a main hairstyle for them, and we have Mohiniyattam, where the side buns are used. Next, we move on to other common Kesha Lankaras. We have the hair flying towards the direction of the wind. Here, the imagination of the sculptor is elegantly seen, as we can see that the kinetic energy is beautifully sculpted. Next, we move on to the hairstyles of sculpture being incorporated into today's society. We can see a hairstyle where there is a side bun and the rest of the hair is left open. Which can be incorporated as according to today's painting that of Lord Krishna that is being painted in current times, has a similar hairstyle like the sculpture. And we can see another sculpture that is Lord Shiva having his jata. But it can be seen in this specific sculpture that it could also be seen as a high pony. Here, there could be an interpretation that many of the mythological characters used in dance or drama could be seen in these hairstyles, could be incorporated as well. So we have, as we all see, Krishna having the side bun and left rest of the hair left open. We can have Andal who has a side bun. Then we can have Narada having bun at the top of the head and leaving the rest of the hair open until shoulders. Next, we move on to Kesha, Lankara, and Rishis. Rishis are the most common sculptures found in Vijayanagara temples, and they're most of the time seen everywhere. So, the common hairstyle that we find in Rishis is the bow like structure, and which is positioned at different places of the head. So we can see in the first two sculptures that the same structure is placed on the top of the head, and in the third sculpture it is placed at the side of the head. We can also see Rishi sculptures having their hair left open. Here, it is also an interpretation that mythological characters who have evil thinking, like Shakuni, could have the same bow like structured hairstyle, which could show his crooked thinking. In conclusion, I conclude that hairstyles in sculptures reflect style, nature, diversity, as well as character in today's world. Thank you.
Thank you, Shravya. Shravya covered beautifully the Kesha Lankara not just in sculptures but also in poetry, if you observed. The Chudamani Prabandham that she spoke about, where the Sita is strangling herself with her braid to not able to withstand the separation from Rama, that's such a beautiful imagery that you can use in dance. I mean, just the imagination will give you tears. That is probably what dance and research and arts like this can do to one. Now, hair is used as a very important accessory in dance, and how hairstyles also signify the state of mood, the state of the being, also was very well covered by her. Like they say, history repeats. I'm sure everybody saw that Lord Shiva having that high pony and that modern girl having a high pony. Feminism everywhere, so we can just go on doing all that they have done. We move on to the third paper from the session by Srimati Rajeshwari M on an exploration of sthanakas of the dance sculptures of Vijayanagara temples under the lens of treatises. Rajeshwari M is a practitioner and student of Bharatanatyam for the past 18 years. She has been trained under Guru Dr. Malini Ravishankar and is currently training under the guidance of Guru Dr. Janaki Rangarajan. A serious student of dramaturgy, Rajeshwari has continued to learn the elements of Natya Shastra from Srimati Diksha Shastri and Srimati Namita Rao. She completed Masters in Bharatanatyam from Jain University. She has many performances to her credit. She has also presented a thematic production on the river Ganga. She is recipient of the scholarship for dance from Karnataka Sangeeta Nrtya Academy. She trains students in both theory and practical aspects of Bharatanatyam along with yoga. Apart from practicing and teaching the art forms, she continues to associate herself with research programs. We now call upon Srimati Rajeshwari M to present her paper. Dhriti, whoever is ringing the bell, kindly do it a little louder. Thank you so much.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. A very good morning to everyone here. So, when I visited these temples, what always struck me was the beautiful postures in which each of the sculpture was. So, there I landed up with the topic an exploration of sthanakas of the dance sculptures of Vijayanagara temples under the lens of Natya Shastra and Sangeeta Ratnakara. So initially, when I saw them, since I am also a practitioner of dance, I could identify a lot of them. So then there were a few which I didn't know. So that was when I realized a lot of not everything is from Natya Shastra. There are a lot of the ones that are from other texts and treatises. So that is when I went to Sangeeta Ratnakara for searching for what are the other ones, because Sangeeta Ratnakara is again of the time period that was very just before that, or almost during the establishment of Vijayanagara Empire. So a lot of Puranas, like even the ones that are on sculptural Shilpa Shastras, like Vishnu Dharmottara Purana or Samarangana Sutradhara, all of them also give a reference to how a sculpting is to be done and what are supposed to be the postures or the sthanas of the sculptures. So that and the ones that we find in Natya Shastra and treatises like Natya Shastra and Sangeeta Ratnakara, which are for and dramaturgy, they started matching. So we could find references in the Shilpa Shastras and the dance treatises. So once I came down to my topic, then is when I decided that I have to go with it. So when I decided I have to go with it, how? First, I have to find out what is a dance sculpture and then get into analyzing the sthanakas of that sculpture. Because temples and the architecture in temples had a lot of sculpture. Not everything was dance. So then is when I put a boundary to myself. So where I first a visual examination of the sculpture was done to see if it matches with anything of the ones mentioned in the treatises. Then the positioning of the sculpture. So according to the guidance that I got and that, so the Natya Mantapa had it was for the constructed for the purpose of performance. So the sculptures in them were carefully examined. Then sometimes you could find a series of sculptures together in a movement, performing a movement. So those sculptures were taken into consideration. Then the sculptures around a sculpture that I found was similar to a dance movement or a posture. Those were examined. So when we go into a few of the examples, I will tell you how I found them. Then the next bifurcation was studying them under the Marga Sthanakas, which is according to the Natya Shastra, and then the Desi Sthanakas according to Sangeeta Ratnakara. And the third one was in the temples that were uh, restored or they were they were sort of further and further made or taken care by the Vijayanagara emperors. So, starting with the identification of Margasthanakas, though there are six Margasthanakas that are mentioned for men in Natya Shastra, out of which only two were found in the Vijayanagara temples. First one is the Vaishnava Sthana. So, almost in every temple that we visited, I found Vaishnava Sthana, and not just one, there were a lot of repetitive sculptures of them. Yeah. Then the Vaishakasthana. Vaishakasthana was very less in number when compared to the Vaishnavasthana. Only in two of the temples, I think, Bhoganandishwara temple had two, three more sculptures in the same sthana, where and also Veerabhadra Swami temple of Lepakshi. So the number had reduced when compared to the Vaishnavasthana. Then going to the three sthanakas, there are three according to Natya Shastra, and two of them were found. Again, not many sculptures. There were just one or two in these temples. Then in Sangeeta Ratnakara, he gives another set of four sthanakas for women, out of which one was found in Bhoganandishwara temple, and another one also is there from the same temple. Then we move on to the Desi Sthanakas. Out of the 23 Desi Sthanakas that are described in Sangeeta Ratnakara, only 5 were found. A lot of repetitions of these 5 existed in the temples. So you could see a number of sculptures with the same Sthanakas. the swastika sthana. So, like I was explaining, you see the dancer on the top, and you see underneath the sculpture is of Brahma and holding a Natvangam in his hand. On the other sides of the pillar, you would be able to see a percussion instrument and these. So, these were the things that also assisted in finding out which the dance sculptures were. This is the Vardhamana Sthana, one of the most popular sthanas that I was able to find in all of the temples. Here's just an example of them. In these, you can see some of them are postures and some are in movement. So if you see in the sculpture from Someshwara Temple, Kolar, or the Kolarama Temple, you will see one of the feet is raised in Agratala Pada, which is the foot pressed on the toes. So you can see that. Nandyavarta sthana is again another very, very common sthana that I found in these temples. So, if you see what I was meaning by series is the Someshwara temple Halsur, you see a series of dancers. Also in the Veerabhadra Swami temple, though it's a pillar, the entire pillar was covered with such dancers in these positions. Again, there's a movement sculpture of Bhoganandishwara temple of Nandi. Samapada, again a very, very, very rare sculpture. I think there were only two sculptures that I found for Samapada, which showed a dancer. There are others for devatas and all goddess and gods and goddesses, but for dance, this was the only sculpture that I found. Chaturashra though it was the same kind of sequence in two different temples, one is Someshwara Bengaluru and one is Someshwara Kolar, the sthanas were different in them. So it depicts movement. So when you're moving from one position to other, the sthana would have changed. So that is depicted in this. So yeah, based on all these, my analysis was so Vijayanagara as a kingdom and the architecture not just depicted something that was static. They went into looking on for movements and tried to etch them into the sculptures. Then, as we go on seeing the number of sculptures that we have found for each of the sthana, the number of Desi sthanakas are higher than the number of Marga sthanakas. And though Vijayanagara kings improved or restored a lot of Chola and Hoysala temples, you can see that the sthanas or the movements are not copied from what was. So they tried to make their mark, keeping the tradition that was in and around, what was in vogue in that day, keeping that in mind, and they were etched rather than whatever was already there in the inside temples. Then, as I went on interpreting why the other sthanas would have not been there. So, what could have been a reason for that? First reason, like I discussed, what was in vogue, what was in practice was tried to put on into the sculptures. That is one of the main reasons. The second is, for example, if we take the Marga Sthanakas of Alida and Pratalida, the definition says that they are used to depict furious movements and the like, war and such scenes. Those were not the kind of dance sculptures that was depicted in these temples. One reason could have been that for not using. And some sthanakas like mandala, which are still in use in most of the classical dance forms today, are still not found in the temples. The reason could have been these are the sthanakas that we commonly use again in war sequences or while riding animals and such. So, what happens in these temple sculptures that I came across? The actual animals are portrayed. So, the sthana as such is not used because the actual animal and them sitting on the actual animal is portrayed instead of portraying it like the dance. And the most of the Desi dance sculptures that are identified were in either Vardhamana Sthana or Nandyavarta Sthana. These sthanas are still in practice today in art forms like Bharatanatyam, Mohiniyattam, Kathakali, Kuchipudi, and Odissi. And another interesting thing that intrigued while I was doing this, also with the help of my guide, was that the measurements that are each of the sthanas are given with tala pramanas, the measurements in case of whether it is Sangeeta Ratnakara or Natya Shastra. And even when you go into Shilpa Shastras, there are measurements for the sculptures that are given. The sculpture has to be in this measurement, and even when they describe a posture, they say that this is how it should be, this should be the distance. That distance, while assessing the sculptures, uh, approximating them visual aids. For example, one tala is told to be the length of the palm, or technically the thumb to the middle finger of that particular sculpture, or the particular sculptor who has made the sculpture, or sometimes the king who is patronaged or given to the construction of the temple. So here I could I could relate to that. And when actually the analysis was done and tried to make an approximation, whatever the sculpture, the Shilpa Shastras or the Natya Shastras said was to be the measurement, that was found almost accurately in these sculptures. So and that brings me to my conclusion. uh, so the Vijayanagara Empire prevailed from 14th century to 17th century. So which sees a lot of significant increase in the Desi Sthanakas, and a lot of repetitive sculptures, either of Kolata or the Sthanaka, shows the popularity that they had gained during that period. And the most important one that I could relate to, using the measurement system, was that every body is different. Every body, every sculpture is different in size and height, depth, whatever. So, and these measurements are according to that particular body. So whatever we consider, whether we as practitioners dance, it is not the same for everyone. It depends on the tala, the measurement of your palm, your hands. So that was something that really was a takeaway for me as a practitioner also, to understand my body better when we dance. And again, the most important thing was how these practices of architecture, how these temples have stood time, and how they give us a documentation for practitioners today to understand what was theoretically explained, without which probably we wouldn't have a hand on anything today. It is, if it's all in books, I mean, those days we didn't have uh, cameras, we didn't have video documentations. So these stand as a proof for us to for all practitioners to go back and understand how it was when we are studying the theory. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you so much uh, for everyone. Thanks to my guide, Dr. Manorama BN, Dwarita Akka, Shalini Akka, Vishnu Prasadana, everyone, and all my uh, peers and my co-internees, my family and friends, everyone, for helping me throughout my journey. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rajeshwari. There was a very unique point that she spoke about, where she said how to identify dance sculptures. It's a common notion that as soon as you enter a temple complex, you think everything is a dance sculpture. Even I have grown up with that belief. But only when I enrolled into this course and Dr. Manorama took us through the intricacies of the sculptures, did we realize that not every sculpture is a dance sculpture. Apart from the gods and goddesses, we thought everything else is a dance sculpture. No, it is not. So the way in which you identify a dance sculpture has been very cleanly utilized by Rajeshwari in her paper presentation. She also spoke about Marga Sthanakas and Desi Sthanakas. Again, she spoke about 6 characteristic Sthanakas for men and 3 for women. I kept thinking, why so? Then I thought probably women, however they stand, it is like dance. So everything is a Sthanaka. So maybe that is why. With all due respects to all the men here. Um, so the extent to which she has worked on this paper is so clearly evident. There's so much information. So anybody who's willing to read this article in detail, I would request you all to pick up a copy of the book in the evening when it is released, so that you will know not just hers. There are even the papers that were presented before hers and after hers that are going to be presented are going to throw open such doors of knowledge to you that you will be wonderstruck that, oh, this does exist, and you will realize how very ignorant we are when it comes to dance sculptures and sculptures of our temples. Now, we move on to the next presentation. ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರಬೇಕು ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಮನ್ಸಿಗೆ ಸಮಾಧಾನ ಆಗಲ್ಲ. ಕನ್ನಡ ಎನೆ ಕುಣಿದಾಡುವುದೆನ್ನೆದೆ, ಕನ್ನಡ ಎನೆ ಕಿವಿ ನಿಮಿರುವುದು, ಕಾಮನ ಬಿಲ್ಲನು ಕಾಣುವ ಕವಿಯೊಳು ತೆಕ್ಕನೆ ಮನಮೈ ಮರೆಯುವುದು. ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹರಿ ಬರೆಯುವನು, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಹರ ತಿರಿಯುವನು, ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿಯೇ ಭಿನ್ನಹಗೈದೊಡೆ ಹರಿವರಗಳ ಮರೆ ಕರೆಯುವನು, ಹರ ಮುರಿಯದೆ ತಾ ಪೊರೆಯುವನು. ರಾಷ್ಟ್ರಕವಿ ಕುವೆಂಪು ಅವರು ಕನ್ನಡಿಗರೆಲ್ಲರ ಸ್ವಾಭಿಮಾನ ಹೇಗೆ ಕೆಚ್ಚೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ರೀತಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಬರೆದಿರುವಂತ ಈ ಪದ್ಯ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಸಹ ಎಷ್ಟು ಅನ್ವಯಿಸುತ್ತೆ. ಈಗ ಇಂತಹ ಕಸ್ತೂರಿ ಕನ್ನಡದಲ್ಲಿ ಮುಂದಿನ ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಿ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಭವಾನಿ ಜೆ ಅವರಿಂದ. ಭವಾನಿ ಜೆ ಅವರು 1995ರಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಜಯಸಿಂಹ ಹಾಗೂ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಸಾವಿತ್ರಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಟಿದಂಥವರು. ಮಧುಸೂದನ್ ಅವರ ಮನದನ್ನೆಯಾಗಿ ಜೀವನ ಎಂತಹುದೇ ತೋರಿಸಿದ್ರೂ ಒಂದು ನಗುಮುಖದೊಂದಿಗೆ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಸ್ವೀಕರಿಸುವಂತಹ ಸ್ವಭಾವವನ್ನು ಹೊತ್ತು ಮುಂದಿನದನ್ನ ನಾನು ಮತ್ತೆ ಆಂಗ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಗೆ ಹೇಳಬೇಕಾಗತ್ತೆ. ಭವಾನಿ is trained under Guru Shri Nagaraj, Guru Srimati B. Bhanumati and Guru Srimati Sheila Chandrasekhar. Currently she is learning in Upadhyay School of Dance under the guidance of Guru Shri Parshvanath Upadhyay. She holds a BCA degree from Maharani's College and Master's degree in Bharatnatyam from Jain University. Along with dance, she is trained in Carnatic music and Gamaka under the guidance of Srimati Gangamma K. Shomurthy and Guru Srimati Vasuki Sharma. She is a recipient of scholarship from Karnataka Sangeet and Natya Academy. She has performed many performances widely across the globe. Presently, she is working as a classical dance teacher in Global City International School. ಜೋರಾದ ಚಪ್ಪಾಳೆಯೊಂದಿಗೆ ಶ್ರೀಮತಿ ಭವಾನಿ ಜೆ. ಅದ್ರ ಟೈಟಲ್ ನಾನು ಕೂಡ ಹೇಳಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಸೀಕ್ರೆಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಲಿ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಕ್ಕೆ ತುಂಬಾನೇ ಸೀಕ್ರೆಟ್ ಆಗೋಯ್ತು. ಭವಾನಿ ಅವರು ಅದ್ರ ಟೈಟಲ್ನ ನಿಮಗೆ ಇವಾಗ ತಿಳಿಸ್ತಾರೆ. ಮುಂದಿನ ಸ್ಲೈಡ್ ಇಂದ ಕನ್ನಡ ಬರುತ್ತೆ.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ, ಶುಭೋದಯ. ಶುಭೋದಯ. ನನ್ನ ಹೆಸರು ಭವಾನಿ. ನಾನು ಪ್ರಸ್ತುತಪಡಿಸ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ವಿಷಯ ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಕಾಲದ ದೇವಾಲಯದ ಶಿಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿನ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಸೌಹಾರ್ದತೆಯ ಸೂಕ್ಷ್ಮಗಳು. ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಅಥವಾ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಹೆಸರಿದೆ, ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ರಾಜ್ಯ. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳಿದ ಕೂಡನೇ ನಮಗೆ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳ ಕೊಡುಗೆ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಸಂಗೀತ, ನೃತ್ಯ, ಸಾಹಿತ್ಯ, ಶಿಲ್ಪಕಲೆ, ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಲೆಗೆ ಸಂಬಂಧಪಟ್ಟಂತ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಷೇತ್ರವು ಉನ್ನತ ಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿತ್ತು ಅಂತ ನಮಗೆ ಐತಿಹಾಸಿಕ ಅಧ್ಯಯನದಿಂದ ಗೊತ್ತಾಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರಿಂದ ಈ ಕಾಲನ ನಾವು ಸುವರ್ಣ ಯುಗ ಅಂತ ಕೂಡ ಕರಿತೀವಿ. ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ ಮಾತ್ರವೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಅವರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಆಳಿದಂತಹ ಎಲ್ಲ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದವರ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳ ಜೀರ್ಣೋದ್ಧಾರ, ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ ಮತ್ತು ಕಲೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಜೀವನದ ಚಿತ್ರಣ, ಶಾಸನಗಳ ಸಂರಕ್ಷಣೆ, ಹೀಗೆ ವೈವಿಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಏಕತೆ ದುಡಿದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯ ಅಂದಿದ ತಕ್ಷಣ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಸೌಹಾರ್ದತೆ ತಿಳಿಯುವ ಮುನ್ನ ಈ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆಯ ಮೂಲ ಉದ್ದೇಶವನ್ನು ತಿಳಿದುಕೊಳ್ಳೋಣ. 1336ರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿದ್ಯಾರಣ್ಯರ ಮಾರ್ಗದರ್ಶನದಂತೆ ಹರಿಹರ ಮತ್ತು ಬುಕ್ಕರಾಯರಿಂದ ಸ್ಥಾಪನೆಯಾಗಿದ್ದು ಈ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯ ಹಲವಾರು ವಂಶಸ್ಥರು ಅಂದರೆ ಸಂಗಮ, ಸಾಲುವ, ತುಳುವ ಮತ್ತು ಅರವಿಡು ಈ 4 ವಂಶಸ್ಥರಿಂದ ಆಳಲ್ಪಟ್ಟರು. ಧರ್ಮ ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಧರ್ಮ ಜಿಜ್ಞಾಸೆಗಳನ್ನು ಉತ್ತರಿಸುವ ರೀತಿ ಮತ್ತು ಬಗೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರು ಎಂದಿಗೂ ಮುನ್ನಡೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಗೋಬ್ರಾಹ್ಮಣೆ ಪ್ರತಿಪಾಲನಾಚಾರ್ಯ ಅಂದರೆ ಗೋವು, ಮಕ್ಕಳು ಮತ್ತು ನಮ್ಮ ಧರ್ಮ ಎಂದೆಂದಿಗೂ ಕಾಪಾಡುತ್ತೇವೆ ಎಂಬ ಘೋಷದಿಂದ ಆಳಲು ಶುರು ಮಾಡಿದ ಇವರು ಪಂಥಗಳನ್ನು ಮೀರಿ, ಅಂದರೆ ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮಕ್ಕೆ ಒತ್ತು ಕೊಟ್ಟು ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮದಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಅನೇಕ ಪಂಥಗಳನ್ನು ಮೀರಿ ಅವರು ಸೌಹಾರ್ದವನ್ನು ಮೆರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಧರ್ಮ ಮತ್ತು ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳನ್ನು ಮುಸಲ್ಮಾನರ ಕ್ರೂರ ದಾಳಿಗಳಿಂದ ತಪ್ಪಿಸಿಕೊಳ್ಳಲು ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳ ಸುತ್ತ ಬೃಹದಾಕಾರದ ಗೋಡೆಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಬೃಹದಾಕಾರದ ಗೋಪುರಗಳು ಅವುಗಳನ್ನು ಈ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದವರಿಂದ ನಿರ್ಮಿತವಾದದ್ದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಕಾಣ್ತೇವೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಹಿಂದೆ ಆಳಿದಂತಹ ಯಾವ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದವರ ಒಂದು ದೇವಾಲಯ ಸ್ಥಾನಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಇದನ್ನ ಕಾಣ್ಬರೋದಿಲ್ಲ. ವಿಜಯನಗರದ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದ ವಾಸ್ತುಶಿಲ್ಪ ಶೈಲಿ ಇದರಿಂದಾನೇ ಒಂದು ಯುನೀಕ್ ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ವೈಶಿಷ್ಟ್ಯತೆಯನ್ನು ಪಡೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. ಏನು ಮಂಟಪ, ಕಂಬಗಳು, ಯಾಳಿಗಳು, ನಾವು ಇದಕ್ಕಿಂತ ಮುಂಚೆ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಷನ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಯಾಳಿಗಳು. ಮತ್ತೆ ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಗತವೈಭವದ ಜೀವನದ ಚಿತ್ರಣ ಹೇಗಿತ್ತೋ ಹಾಗೆ ಏನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಹಾಗೆ ಕೆತ್ತುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಶಿಲ್ಪಿಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಚಾಣಚಕ್ಯತೆ, ಆ ಒಂದು ಬುದ್ಧಿವಂತಿಕೆ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ರಿ ಇರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳಿದ್ವಿ. ಸೊ ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಗೆ ಡಾಕ್ಯುಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡೋದು, ಏನ್ ನೋಡ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ, ಏನು ಜೀವನ ಶೈಲಿ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ನಾರ್ಮಲ್ ಅವರು ನಿಜ ಜೀವನದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೋತಿದ್ರು, ಏನ್ ಕಂಡಿದ್ದನ್ನ ಅವರು ಹಾಗೆ ದಾಖಲಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋದ್ರು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ಶಿಲೆಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಧಾರ್ಮಿಕ ಸೌಹಾರ್ದತೆಯನ್ನು ಕೆತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದು ಸಮಾಜದ ಒಂದು ಭಾಗನೇ ಆಗಿತ್ತು ಅನ್ನೋದು ನಮ್ಮ ಭಾವನೆ. ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಬಂದಂತಹ ಮಾಧವಾಚಾರ್ಯರ ಸರ್ವದರ್ಶನ ಸಂಗ್ರಹ ಆ ಕೃತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ 16 ದರ್ಶನ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ವಿವಿಧ ತತ್ವಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ಧರ್ಮ ಜಿಜ್ಞಾಸೆ, ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಧರ್ಮದ್ದು ಹಲವಾರು ಧರ್ಮದ ಬಗ್ಗೆನೂ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಧರ್ಮ ಜಿಜ್ಞಾಸೆ ಇವಿಗೆಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಉತ್ತರಿಸುವ ಮೂಲಕ ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಧರ್ಮಕ್ಕೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲವರಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿತ್ತು, ಧರ್ಮ ಸಮನ್ವತೆ ಇತ್ತು ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ನಾವು ತಿಳ್ಕೊತೀವಿ. ಹಾಗೆ ನಮ್ಮ ರಾಜರು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯದ ಸೀಮಂತರು ಬರೀ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಮಾತ್ರವೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ, ನಾವು ಇತಿಹಾಸಗಳನ್ನ ಪುಟಗಳ ತಿರುವಿದರೆ ಬರೀ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಮಾತ್ರವೇ ಅಲ್ಲದೆ ಚರ್ಚು, ಮಸೀದಿ, ಜೈನ ಬಸದಿ ಮತ್ತು ಬೌದ್ಧ ಸ್ತೂಪ, ಅನೇಕ ಸ್ಮಾರಕಗಳನ್ನ ಕೂಡ ಕಟ್ಟಿಸಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಕೊಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆಗಮಗಳ ಪಾಲನೆಯ ನಡುವೆ ಮತ ಸೌಹಾರ್ದತೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಆಗಮಗಳು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇದ್ರು ಆಗಮಗಳಿಗೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿದಿರೋ ಹಾಗೆ 5 ಆಗಮಗಳಿವೆ. ಶೈವಾಗಮ, ವೈಷ್ಣವಾಗಮ, ಶಾಕ್ತ್ಯಾಗಮ, ಗಾಣಪತ್ಯಾಗಮ ಮತ್ತು ಸೌರಾಗಮ. ಆ ಆಗಮಗಳಿಗೆ ತಕ್ಕಂತೆ ಆ ಗ್ರಂಥಗಳಿವೆ ಮತ್ತು ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತಕ್ಕಂತೆ ರೀತಿ ರಿವಾಜು, ಪೂಜಾ ವಿಧಿವಿಧಾನ, ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಗಳ ನಿರ್ಮಾಣ, ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂತಿಂಥದ್ದೇ ಇರಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಶಿಲ್ಪಿ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಶಿಲೆಗಳ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ, ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ದೇವರ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನಕ್ಕೆ ಯಾವ್ಯಾವ ಶಿಲೆಗಳಿರ್ಬೇಕು, ಮತ್ತು ವ್ರತಾನುಷ್ಠಾನ, ಹಲವಾರು ರೀತಿ ರಿವಾಜುಗಳು. ನಮ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಬುಕ್ ಅಂತ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ, ಆ ತರ ಇದು ಆ ಆಗಮಗಳಿಗೆ ಇದು ರೂಲ್ ಬುಕ್ ಇದ್ದಂತೆ. 5 ಆಗಮಕ್ಕೆ 5 ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಬುಕ್ ಇದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಇದರ ಅರ್ಥ ನಾವಿದರಲ್ಲಿ ಏನ್ ಕಾಣ್ತೀವಿ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ತತ್ವವು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆದ್ರು, ಇವಾಗ ಆಗಮಗಳು ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆದ್ರು, ನಾವು ಹೇಳಕ್ ಹೊರಟಿರುವಂತಹ ಹಿಂದೂ ಧರ್ಮ ಒಂದೇ. ಸೊ ತತ್ವ ಬೇರೆಯಾದರೂ ಅಥವಾ ಆರಾಧನೆ ವಿಧಿವಿಧಾನ ಬೇರೆ ಆದ್ರು, ಭಕ್ತ ವರ್ಗ ಅಥವಾ ದೇವರು ಎಲ್ಲ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಆದ್ರು, ಹೋಗ್ತಾ ಇರೋಂಥ ಮಾರ್ಗ ಒಂದೇ, ಮೋಕ್ಷ ಮಾರ್ಗ. ಶೈವಾಗಮದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ನಾ ಹೇಳಿದೆ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಬುಕ್ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ. ಸೊ ಆ ಶೈವಾಗಮದ ಪ್ರಕಾರ ಶಿವನ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಶಿವನ ಪರಿವಾರ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅವ್ರ ಮನೆಯವರು, ಶಿವ, ಪಾರ್ವತಿ, ಗಣಪತಿ, ಸುಬ್ರಹ್ಮಣ್ಯ ಮತ್ತು ಗಣಗಳು, ಈ ತರದ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಸರ್ವೇ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಅದು ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಶಿವನ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆಯ ಆಧಾರಿತ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಶಿವನ ದೇವಾಲಯಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಕೆತ್ತನೆ ಮತ್ತು ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಅವತಾರಗಳ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗೆ ನೀಡಿರುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಏನ್ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಅದು, ಮತ್ತೆ ರಾಮಾನುಜಾಚಾರ್ಯರ ಕೆತ್ತನೆ, ಇವುಗಳನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ನೋಡೋದು ನನಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಬಹಳ ವಿಶೇಷ ಅನಿಸ್ತು. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಶಿವನ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಯಾಕೆ ಬಂದ, ಯಾಕೆ ಏನಿದ್ರದ್ದು ಹಿಂದಿನ ಕತೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಹೊಳೆದಂತ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಸೊ ಈ ನೃತ್ಯ ಶಿಲ್ಪಿ ಯಾತ್ರೆ ಅಡಿ ನಾವು ಹೋದಾಗ ಇದ್ರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಅಧ್ಯಯನ ಮಾಡುವಂತಹ ಅವಕಾಶ ನಂಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ತು. ಈ ಮತ್ಸ್ಯಾವತಾರವನ್ನ ನಾವು ಭೋಗನಂದೀಶ್ವರ ಮತ್ತು ಹಲಸೂರು ಸೋಮೇಶ್ವರ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಾಲಯದಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಈ ಮತ್ಸ್ಯಾವತಾರ, ವರಾಹಾವತಾರ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆಲವು ಕಡೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ಕಂಡು ಬಂತು. ಸೊ ವರಾಹಾವತಾರ ಇಷ್ಟು ಹೋಗಿದ್ದ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಎವಿಡೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಒಂದು ಕಾಣುವಂತಹ ಶಿಲೆ ಅಂತಂದ್ರೆ ಇದೊಂದೇ. ಇದು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಣಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದು ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ. ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ನೃಸಿಂಹಾವತಾರ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ನೋಡ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಶೇಷತೆ ಏನಂದ್ರೆ ನೃಸಿಂಹಾವತಾರ ಒಂದೇ ತರ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಕೆತ್ತನೆ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಯೋಗ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ಉಗ್ರ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ಅಭಯ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ಸೊ ಆ ತರ ತುಂಬಾನೇ ತರಹದ ನರಸಿಂಹನ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲೇ ಹೋದ್ರು ಉಗ್ರ ನರಸಿಂಹನ್ಗೆ ಇದೇ ತರನೇ ಸ್ಕಲ್ಪ್ಚರ್ನ ಕೆತ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಇದು ನಮಗೆ ಕಾಣಸಿಗೋದು ಹಲಸೂರು ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ, ಭೋಗನಂದೀಶ್ವರ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ, ಹಾಗೆ ವಿರೂಪಾಕ್ಷ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ. ಇದು ಯೋಗ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಕಾಲದ್ದು ತುಂಬಾನೇ ಒಂದು ಫೇಮಸ್ ಸ್ಕಲ್ಚರ್. ನಾವು ತುಂಬಾ ಬೃಹದಾಕಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಮಿನಿಯೇಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ನಾವು ಹೇಳ್ಬೋದು. ಹಲಸೂರು ಸೋಮೇಶ್ವರ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಾಲಯದ್ದು ಮೊದಲನೇ ಚಿತ್ರ, ಎರಡನೆಯದು ಲೇಪಾಕ್ಷಿ ಮತ್ತು ಮೂರನೆಯದು ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ. ಮೂರರಲ್ಲೂ ಒಂದೇ ತರಹದ ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಮೆಷರ್ಮೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ಕೈಯಲ್ಲಿ ಹಿಡಿದಿರುವಂತಹ ಚಿಹ್ನೆ ಎಲ್ಲವೂ ಒಂದೇ ತರಹದ್ದಾಗಿದೆ. ಮುಂದೆ ಬರುವಂಥದ್ದು ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ನರಸಿಂಹ. ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ನರಸಿಂಹಂದು ನಾವು ರಾಮಲಿಂಗೇಶ್ವರ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಾಣಸಿಗುವಂಥದ್ದು ಮೊದಲನೇ ಚಿತ್ರ, ಎರಡನೇ ಚಿತ್ರ ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ, ಹಾಗೆ ಮೂರನೆಯದು ಭೋಗನಂದೀಶ್ವರ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ. ಇದನ್ನ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ನಾವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋದಾಗ ನೋಡಕ್ಕೆ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದು, ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ಗಣಪತಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ನರಸಿಂಹ ಯಾಕೆ ಬಂದ, ಅಥವಾ ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ರಾಮಂದು ಕಥೆಗಳ ಚಿತ್ರಣನೂ ಇದೆ. ಸೊ ಗಣಪತಿ ರಿಲೇಟೆಡ್ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೇಕಲ್ವಾ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು, ಇದ್ಯಾಕೆ ಬಂತು ಅಂತ ಹೊಳೆದಂತ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆಗಳಿವೆಲ್ಲ. ಮುಂದೆ ಬರೋದು ಅಭಯ ನರಸಿಂಹ. ಅಭಯ ನರಸಿಂಹ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ನೋಡಕ್ಕೆ. ನೋಡಿ ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಚಿತ್ರಗಳು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲೇ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿದ್ದು. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನ ಚಿಕ್ಕದಾಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಆದ್ರೆ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಂತಹ ಕಂಬಗಳ ಮೇಲಿದ್ದಂತಹ ಕಲೆ ಮಾತ್ರ ತುಂಬಾನೇ ಸೊಗಸಾಗಿದೆ. ಇದರೆಲ್ಲ ನಾವು ರಾಮಾಯಣ ಕಥೆಗಳ ಒಂದೊಂದು ಚಿತ್ರಣ. ಈ ರಾಮಾವತಾರ ಮೊದಲನೇ ಚಿತ್ರ ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಲೇಪಾಕ್ಷಿಲಿ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಲೇಪಾಕ್ಷಿ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಇನ್ ಮಿಕ್ಕಿದ 2 ಚಿತ್ರಗಳು ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕುರುಡುಮಲೆ ಗಣಪತಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲೇ ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ. ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಏನಂತಾರೆ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಪಿಕ್ಚರ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಆ ಸೀರೀಸ್ ನೋಡ್ತಾ ನಾವು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆಯ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರಣ ಬರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ ತರ ಒಂದು ಕಥೆಯ ಚಿತ್ರಣದ ಟಾಪಿಕ್. ಮುಂದೆ ಬರೋದು ಕೃಷ್ಣಾವತಾರದಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಸರ್ವೇ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಹೋದಂತ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲೂ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ಈ ತರ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರಣವನ್ನ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದೀವಿ. ಈ ಹೋದಂತ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲೂ ಕಾಳಿಂಗ ನರ್ತನ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕೃಷ್ಣ ಕೊಳಲು ಉತ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ದೃಶ್ಯ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಇದೆಲ್ಲ ಸರ್ವೇ ಸಾಮಾನ್ಯವಾಗಿ ಸಿಕ್ಕಂತ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು. ಇದಲ್ಲದೆ ಕೃಷ್ಣನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಹಲವಾರು ಜೀವನದ ಘಟನೆಗಳ ಒಂದು ಚಿತ್ರಣವನ್ನು ಕೂಡ ನಾವು ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆದ್ರೆ ಅದೆಲ್ಲವೂ ವಿಶಿಷ್ಟ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂಥರ ಈ ಗತಿ ಚಿತ್ರ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಿ ಗೊತ್ತಾ, ಯಾವ್ದು ಸ್ಟಿಲ್ ಮೂವ್ಮೆಂಟ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ನಮಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿರೋದು. ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಮೂವ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲಿ ಎಲ್ಲೋ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಒಂದು ಪೋಸಿಗೆ ಬಂದಿರುವಂತ ಒಂದು ಕೆತ್ತನೆ. ಸೊ ಅಲ್ಲಿಗೆ ನಾವು ಮನವರಿಕೆ ಮಾಡ್ಕೋಬಹುದು, ಅಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರೇನೋ, ಅಥವಾ ಒಂದು ದೇವತೆಗಳ ಕಥೆಗಳನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಅದನ್ನ ನೋಡಿನ ಇವ್ರು ಕೆತ್ತಿರೋದೇನೋ, ಆ ಒಂದು ರೀತಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಭಾವಿಸ್ಕೋಬಹುದು. ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನು ನೋಡ್ತಿರುವಾಗ ಆ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಮತ ಸೌಹಾರ್ದತೆ ಇತ್ತು. ಆರಾಮಾಗಿ ಜನ ಇವಾಗ ಏನ್ ಕಿತ್ತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅದು ಇದು ಜಾತಿ ಧರ್ಮ ಪಂಥ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಅವರು ನಾವು ಹಿಂದೂಗಳು ಅಂತ ಬಾಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು. ಅಂತ ಸಾಮ್ರಾಜ್ಯ ನಮಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ಒಂದು ಭಾವನೆಯೊಂದಿಗೆ ನನ್ನ ಮಾತುಗಳನ್ನ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದ.
ಸ್ವಸ್ತಿ ಪ್ರಜಾಭ್ಯಾಂ ಪರಿಪಾಲಯಂತಾಂ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಶಾಂತಿ ಮಂತ್ರದಲ್ಲಿ ಹೇಗೆ ಅವರು ಧರ್ಮ ಸಹಿಷ್ಣುತೆಯನ್ನ ಹೇಳಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅನ್ನೋದನ್ನ ಈ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು ನಮಗೆ ತೋರಿಸ್ಕೊಡತ್ತೆ. ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಶ್ರೀ ವೈಷ್ಣವ ಧರ್ಮದಲ್ಲಿ ತೆಂಗಲೆ ವಡಹಲೆ ಅಂತ 2 ಪದ್ಧತಿ ಇದೆ. ಇಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಮಹನೀಯರಿಗೆಲ್ಲ ಗೊತ್ತಿರತ್ತೆ. ಶ್ರೀರಂಗಂ ಅನ್ನುವಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಬೃಹತ್ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿರ್ಬೋದು, ಅಥವಾ ಕಾಂಚೀಪುರದ ವರದರಾಜ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇವತ್ತಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳದಂಗೆ ಕಿತ್ತಾಟಗಳು ನಡೀತಾನೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆ 2 ಪಂಥದ ಮಧ್ಯಾನೇ ಕಿತ್ತಾಟ ನಡೆಯುತ್ತೆ. ಶಿವನ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷ್ಣುವಿನ ಒಂದು ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನೇ ಕೆತ್ತಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನೀವು ಎಲ್ಲ ಯಾರು ಇಂಥ ಒಂದು ಕಿತ್ತಾಟಗಳನ್ನ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಕ್ಕೆ? ಆ ಒಂದು ಧರ್ಮ ಸಹಿಷ್ಣುತೆ ಭವಾನಿ ಹೇಳ್ದಂಗೆ ಅವತ್ತಿನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದು ಇವತ್ತಿಗೆ ವಾಪಸ್ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಜೀವನ ಎಲ್ಲಾರ್ಗೂ ಸುಗಮ ಆಗತ್ತೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋತೀನಿ. ಆಗಮಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತುಂಬಾ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ರು. ಹಾಗೆಯೇ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ಇರುವಂತಹ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು, ನರಸಿಂಹನ ಬೇರೆ ಬೇರೆ ರೂಪ, ಯೋಗ ನರಸಿಂಹ ಅಥವಾ ಲಕ್ಷ್ಮೀ ನರಸಿಂಹ, ಉಗ್ರ ನರಸಿಂಹ ಎಲ್ಲವನ್ನು ಬಹಳ ಸುಂದರವಾಗಿ ನಿಮ್ಮ ಮುಂದೆ ಇಟ್ರು. ಕೂಡುಮಲೆ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಅವ್ರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ದು ಬಹಳ ಒಂದು ಸುಂದರವಾದ ಒಂದು ಏನಿದೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಅವು ಹೊರಗಡೆಯಿಂದ ನೋಡಿದ್ರೆ ಆ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಏನೂ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅನ್ಕೋಬೇಕು. ಏನಪ್ಪ ಏನೋ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇಲ್ಲೇ ನಮ್ಮನೆ ತುದಿನಲ್ಲಿರೋ ಗಣೇಶನ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನನೇ ಅಲ್ಲೂ ಇದೆ ಅಂತ ಅನ್ಕೋಬೇಕು, ಈ ಪ್ರಾಚೀನ ಕಾಲದಲ್ಲಿ ಕಟ್ಟಿರೋದು ಅಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ. ಬಟ್ ಒಳಗಡೆ ಹೋದಾಗ ನಿಮಗೆ ಅದರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಪರಿಪೂರ್ಣ ಅನುಭವ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. ಇರೋ ಒಂದು 6 ಕಂಬಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ಅದ್ ಏನು ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಕೆತ್ತಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ಯಪ್ಪ ದೇವ್ರು ನೋಡೋದ್ರ ಬದಲು ಇದನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಕುತ್ಕೊಳ್ಳೋದೇನೆ ಆಗೋಗ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ ಅನ್ನೋ ತರ, ದೇವ್ರಿಗೆ ಆಮೇಲೆ ಬರ್ತೀವಿ ಇರಿ ಒಂದ್ ನಿಮಿಷ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋ ತರ ಒಂದು ಭಾವನೆ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡತ್ತೆ. ಅಷ್ಟು ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳು. ಇಂತಹ ಕೆತ್ತನೆಗಳನ್ನ ಪರಿಚಯನ ನಮಗೆ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಟ್ಟಂತಹ ನೂಪುರ ಭ್ರಮರಿ ಸಂಸ್ಥೆಯ ಈ ಒಂದು ನೃತ್ಯ ಶಿಲ್ಪ ಯಾತ್ರೆಗೆ ನಮ್ಮೆಲ್ಲರದು ಒಂದು ದೊಡ್ಡ ಹೃತ್ಪೂರ್ವಕವಾದಂತಹ ಒಂದು ಅಭಿನಂದನೆಗಳನ್ನ ತಿಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು. Coming to the last paper for this session is on the ancient system of yoga by Sharmila R. Udupa, Yoga Iconography in the Selected Temple of Vijayanagara and a Comparative Study on Present Day Practices. Sharmila R. Udupa, born in 1987 to Sri Ramesh Udupa and Srimati Sujata Ramesh, is always self-aware on her practices. Sharmila started her dance lessons under the guidance of Srimati Shubha Dhananjay. Since then, Sharmila has been actively involved in cultural programs and performed classical and folk dances in many cultural events and competitions. She has played major roles in the theatre play called Vrukodara Vrittanta, the story of Mahabharata through the eyes of Bhima, curated by the Structural School of Fine Arts, Bangalore. She completed her junior and senior examinations of the Karnataka board. She is currently learning under Guru Srimati Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha. She holds a BE and an MBA degree. She is an avid yoga practitioner and a certified yoga protocol instructor from the Ministry of Ayush. She is a voiceover artist and has about 9 audio novels under her. Humble request to every presenter who's coming here, in case you use the stool that I'm using right now, kindly come closer to the mic, because the farther you go from the mic, the voice seems to echo and it leaves a very bad note at the end of your sentence. We now welcome Sharmila R. Udupa.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Am I audible? A very good morning to one and all present here. I am the disciple of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha and an internee at the Nrtya-Silpa-Yatras 2022 conducted by Nupura Brahmari. And my subject is yoga iconography in the selected temples of Vijayanagar era and a comparative analysis of the modern day practice with the Vijayanagar practices. So what do the treatises say? Treatises say the main definition of yoga is from the root word yuj, which is the union of the Jivatma and Paramatma, or the individual with the superconsciousness. So the Upanishads also say the same thing, and Bhagavad Gita says inculcating a good quality of mind. Rigveda says to create the happiness with virtue of intense warmth, the tapas that we generate. And Patanjali says the tapas leads to perfection of body and senses. This is an archaeological proof that we found in the excavation of Mohenjo-daro, a terracotta seal of Pashupati with horned headdress, and if you could see the asana is the Lalitasana, or the one folded leg and the other left suspended down. The Shiva Samhita says there are 6 preconditions for the success of yoga. What are they? The confidence. The confidence that the spiritual path and one's effort has to be fruitful. That is the confidence that the individual needs to have. The Shraddha, the faith, and the Guru Pujana, that is the respect or the worship of the teacher. The Samata Bhava, the sense of equanimity, and the Indriya Nigram, which is the control of the senses, and the last is the moderate diet. If one has to be successful, this has to be the preconditions, is what Shiva Samhita says. We will now see the yogic concept being incorporated in the temple design and also as individual basis. If you see the Garbhagriha, the temple, the Garbhagriha is compared to the human head, and the Antaralam is compared to the Gala or the neck. The Ardhamantapam or the half hall is compared to the Hridaya or the Kucha, and the main hall is the stomach, the abdomen. The Dvajastambham or the pillar post, and the Prakaram is compared to the feet and the male genitals. We will now move on to the sculptures that were observed during the field visit, and I would be demonstrating a couple of them so that that's a comparison for the modern day practice. The first one is Ardhabhadra Konasana or Ardhabhadrasana, which is a very common seated posture which is observed in most of the yogis or the most of the saints. Why is yoga or asana a seated posture? Because if you go back to the slide here, if I compare this picture where the first point or the first figure is the Muladhara chakra. That is where the spiritual energy gets uplifted or triggered. That is where it starts. And then we move on to the 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the final chakra is the Sahasra chakra, which is at the crown of your head. So that is the reason why most of the yogis would be seated, would be grounded, so that the Muladhara chakra is towards the ground. And that is where the spiritual energy starts triggering. And then they continue to practice. So that is the reason why most of the asanas here are seated, and these are the basic positions that we as practitioners also start our journey. So the first one is Ardhabhadrasana or Ardhabhadra Konasana, which is a very common posture. We all do this during our dance practice or the warm-up as well. The second one is the image for Anjaneyasana. Anjaneyasana is a flexible related asana, and you could also call it as a modern day lunge. I'll be demonstrating it. It's also a hip opener, and you could see that you've seen that picture. It is observed in the Veerabhadra temple of Lepakshi. So your right leg goes forward, and the left leg is stretched nicely, and the hip sinks down as possible. So remember, the knee should not cross the toe line. And then you stretch your hands, and it's all the way up. This is Anjaneyasana, or it's named after the Hanuman Lord. Next, we move on to image 5, which is Padmasana. Again, a very common posture, the lotus posture. One important thing that I've read about this posture is when you sit in Padmasana, if you've seen a lot of yogis practicing Padmasana, they can sit for a longer time, purely because the position that the yogi has kept, where it's crossed leg or the lotus pose, is so aligned that your body, even if it goes to sleep, will not fall. So that is the reason why Padmasana is practiced during a long meditative process. And now we move on to the sixth image, which is Ardha Padma Vrikshasana, which is a hybrid of Vrikshasana and Padmasana. So if you've noticed the picture, this is a picture from Halsuru Someshwara temple, and the saint is actually standing in Vrikshasana with a Padmasana, with a crossed leg. So this is how it looks like. You first stand in the straight position, lift your right leg up, cross it, and place your ankle onto your outer thigh. And raise your hands in Vrikshasana position. Okay. This is Ardha Padma Vrikshasana, and the image 7 is Purna Dhanurasana, or this is one of the flexibility related asana. This and Anjaneyasana are the two pictures where I found that Vijayanagar Empire, Vijayanagar Kingdom gave importance to flexibility, apart from the majority being covered with respect to the balancing asanas. So Purna Dhanurasana is where the person lies down in a prone position and holds her or his legs and lifts it, which will give a good chest opening and an abdomen opening. Next is image 8, which is Gorakshasana. Gorakshasana is again named after the Goraksha saint. It is a very good activity or an asana or a warm-up for dancers. basically because it helps to mobilize or make sure the ankles are flexible. So you're again grounded, you're seated, and then you're nicely twisting your ankles and placing your feet on the toes. Okay, this is called Gorakshasana. Another thing is all these asanas require again a warm up. So I might not be able to do just as much as the picture shows, and they are picture perfect again. So the next slides are the intermediate asanas. The first slide was basic asanas, which most of us could do. Now we move on to the intermediate asanas during the Vijayanagar period. The image 9 is called Gomukasana. Gomukha means the cow face. The legs are crossed, and if you see the legs are crossed, it looks like a cow's face. And this is also a very simple asana. You can also see he being wearing the yoga patta. That is also, it's also called as a yoga strap. The next one, image 10, is Utkat Konasana, or it's called Goddess Kali pose. I'll be demonstrating that. So you're going to widen your legs 3 feet apart, and then you're going to squat down so that the thighs are parallel to the floor. Okay, this is Goddess Kali pose or Utkatasana. Utkatasana is derived from Utkatasana, which is a chair pose. So the chair pose has its origin back in the yoga treatise. Utkat Konasana is a variation which is extracted from Utkatasana or the chair pose. If you see image 12, that's Utkatasana. So Utkat Konasana is derived from Utkatasana. And the very common pose, image 11, which is Swastikasana, most of us or most of the yogis, most of the saints practice meditation with Swastikasana. And the next intermediate pose, which I found in Veerabhadra temple, Lepakshi again, is Uttita Hastapad Angushtasana. It is predominantly called the Trivikramasana also. So here the practitioner lifts one of the legs and raises it as much as possible. It is again for the balance and flexibility. I'll be demonstrating it. This slide speaks about the advanced yogasanas being practiced at the Vijayanagar kingdom. I have parallelly worked on the modern day pictures also because it requires a lot of warm up and a sequence of basic intermediate asanas to be performing this. Again, if you see, majority of them were balancing asanas, a couple of them being a little flexible ones, which the 14th image is Gupta Padmasana or the hidden Padmasana. If you could see, the lower part of the body is in Padmasana and the upper part is prone. So it is called Gupta Padmasana. This was found again in the Lepakshi temple, Veerabhadra temple, Lepakshi. The next figure was found at Sringeri Sharadhamba temple, Kukutasana or the rooster pose, where the person is balancing the whole body with lotus feet and the hands. The next one was Ekapada Shirasana and Dvipada Shirasana. They both are, the Dvipada is a successor of the first one. So if you see, there's again a balancing posture. Image 18 is Uttita Trivikrama Asana. Again, this is without the support of the hand. And the next one is Vrishikasana. Vrishikasana should not be confused with the Chakrasana because here, if you see, it's a different way to do the Vrishikasana. Again, it's a balancing pose. And the last one is Shirshasana Pada Padmasana, which is again a lotus pose with an inversion. So predominantly, these were all balancing postures. Now, yoga and dance perspective. How can we implement, or are we even following the roots, or are we slightly digressing? Let's answer that question now. So, yoga, are we basically warm up if we consider warm up in terms of dance, we use a lot of asanas, but there is scope of improvement. For improvement, like your Anjaneyasana can be used for a deep lunge and a deep hip opener, and also the Ekapada Vrikshasana that we did, that is another hip opener where we can start improving the concentration and focus of a dancer. Now, when you come to dance dramas, there are a few things which can be adapted only if necessary, but it should not digress from the actual point, is what I'm trying to say. Then, the one important point that we also have to note down is the post practice stretches. Post practice, we intensely have a dance workout for 3 hours or 2 hours of practice, which ends up with just doing nothing. So, my humble request is a shavasana after your practice would help you to calm your mind down and get your day going. And lastly, conclusion, I have found that there is a shift in the actual approach of yoga from being a focus of the mind and coordination to physical and psychological aspects. Of course, Vijayanagar temple gave prominence to all the series of asanas, right from the basic to the advanced level of asanas, and applications of yoga in dance. There is definitely scope to improve, and temples are the way to go. They actually create an inspiration and awareness for young practitioners like us. Please honor your body. Namaste. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharmila. That was a beautiful presentation. I think her expertise in yoga came out very well in everything that she demonstrated, whether on the slides or on the stage. She also very interestingly spoke about the chakra system akin to the temple structure construction. Those of us who were not initiated into temple study or study of the sculptures would have never known this. In fact, I feel it's a very unique point that you can use to pull the next generation, which is going away from our tradition. Devasthanak Banni Indra, they're like, it's okay, we'll go tomorrow, day after. They forget that there is a reason why you need to visit a temple at least once in a week, if not every day. So these points can be used as an interesting candy tara. You can just offer it to them and say, do you know this happened? Because it triggers their brain. Because somehow, unfortunately, we've been fed a candy of feeling low about yourself. You depreciate your own value because Britishers told you you're up to no good. So we still live under the impression that we are up to no good. So the next generation to us is also, sadly, majority of them are carrying with that feeling. So we need to tell them that, no, this is what it is. Because practically I've experienced it when I spoke about the chakra system of temple construction to my children. And recently when we went to Bhubaneswar trip, they were least bothered about anything outside the temple structure. They went on more enthusiastically than me and said, Amma, this is that style. Amma, that is this style. I had to really wonder, oh, these are my children. I had to take a second thought, oh, okay, now they are transformed. So this can happen. So I think it is time we all do this. She also spoke very beautifully about Baddha Konasana and Ardha Baddha Konasana, how look at the science behind it. If the yogi sat in that posture, you will not fall asleep, or even if you do, which is actually needed for meditation, that they ask you to fall asleep, you will not fall off the posture. That's a beautiful concept, actually. Only problem for us non-practitioners of everyday yoga is you lock it and then you don't know when you will come back. Yeah. Anyway, so let's honor our bodies and respect our bodies, like she said. We are left with a couple of minutes before we take the first break of the session. So anybody have questions regarding the first few papers that were presented here? Please, you're more than welcome to share your questions within a sentence or two so that we can clear it for you. I hope all of you are not sleeping. It is not lunchtime yet or post-lunch. No questions? Anybody? No? All right. Okay. Thank you so much. So we move on to a few very important comments from one of our observers, Sri Arun Srinivasan sir. We would request you come and share your thoughts about the papers presented here and give us points for our improvement. Everybody, Sri Arun Srinivasan sir.
Namaste. It has been a wonderful set of presentations, and thanks to Nupura Brahmari for organizing such such eye-opening sessions and guiding these interns. Uh, the presentations have been truly wonderful. A lot of work has gone behind all of these, all of these research works and papers. But then a few things can be definitely noted. For example, I was definitely awed by the strength of these researchers. The See, if for me a dancer, I am not a person with experience of temple architecture or temple studies. So when I have to look at temple studies, I look at it as a ranga. So a stage basically. So when we consider a stage as, I mean, sorry, a temple as stage, the placement of sculptures become very important. For example, the very first presentation, she said there are yalis, there are kinnaras, there are yakshas, and everywhere placed. So if you can just validate or give us the reason why such particular sculptures are placed at particular points, it will be definitely wonderful. For example, for somebody like me, because I definitely don't know why they are placed at that particular point. I can definitely ask why not at a different point, right? So if such things can be validated, it will be definitely be wonderful. The second presentation on Kesha Alankara was wonderful, truly wonderful. But then you see, there is something called Bhavyatri Pratibha in Indian aesthetics. There is technique, you learn technique, you observe a few things, and then you learn about it, you practice, you better your skills, you better your knowledge and all of that. But then Bhavetri Pratibha is something where you sense. For example, the comparison between the Kesha and the attitude of the god or the goddess is something which is truly wonderful. I'm not saying it is wrong, but then there needs to be some validation, right? I mean, for example, Kali having a matted hair and Parvati having a braided hair is very true. It definitely reflects upon the qualities or the guna of the particular goddess. However, if it can be validated with some references as to why it is done, so it will be definitely wonderful. And this is not something which a treatise can give. So this is something of a psychology. So if it can be done, it will be wonderful for somebody like me who has no knowledge about temple I mean, rather, who has no technical knowledge about temple and sculptures. And I see all of these as characters on stage. Apart from these, I think it has been a wonderful session, and I look forward to more such eye openers. Thank you, and my thanks to Nupura Brahmari for organizing such beautiful symposiums. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun Srinivasan, sir. Um, I would like to now call upon Sri R. Dattakumar, sir, on dais to share his opinions about the papers presented here and give us his valuable feedback.
Gurubhyo Namaha. I think this is better for me. I'm an art guy around here because I see art forms. I like viewing the Bharatnatyam and I listen to a lot of music. But by profession, I'm an engineer. What was intriguing for me is I have visited many temples. And as many people said, the intricacies of all these was really an eye-opener for me. Because when we get into a temple, this idea of something called mythical beings didn't even occur to me all this time. And secondly, I also see a lot of videos on the architecture in temples because over the recent past we have all seen, or probably many of you would have seen, WhatsApp videos where there are some scriptures with a mouse pad, there are some scriptures with a computer there, And it's really intriguing the fact that all these, did they exist then? So this was a real connection that, yeah, it would have, that era must have been really, really scientific than what we are seeing now. And many of them, as the author rightly said, Sahana rightly said, they are still cryptic, and they need a lot of thought process to be put in to decipher that crypticism, if I can use that word. When Sharanya mentioned about Keshalankara, one thought that came to me are the sprawling beauty parlors. And I was trying to see, yeah, in Bharatnatyam, of the dances that I've seen, there are a lot of these things that come. Keshalankara is there, but the linkage was brought out very beautifully. Now, specific to Rajeshwari's sthanakas, she mentioned the fact that there are 5 out of 23 which have been kind of deciphered, and the rest are still cryptic. Maybe a visit to many other temples in South India as well as in the North can give some more variant to identifying sthanikas. That's what came to my mind when I heard that. And Bhavani's idea of the Dharmika Sauhardate Sukshmagalu was good, because it also was a real opener for me in terms of, yeah, ಇಷ್ಟೆಲ್ಲ ಇರುತ್ತೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಕಡೆನೂ ಎಲ್ಲ ನೋಡ್ತೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಶಿವನ್ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ವಿಷ್ಣು ಇರತ್ತ ಅಂತ ನಾನು ನೋಡಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಇನ್ಮೇಲೆ ಕಣ್ಣಾಯಿಸಿ ನೋಡ್ತೀನಿ. And yogic, Sharmila ಅವರು ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು, yogic relation to Bharatnatyam, that was also very well brought out. ಓವರಾಲ್ ನನ್ಗೇನು ಬಹಳ ಖುಷಿ ಕೊಡ್ತು ಅಂದ್ರೆ, ನಾನು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಕೂತಿದ್ದಾಗ ಅನಿಸ್ತು, ನಾವು ಮಾತಾಡೋಕ್ಕೆ ಬರಲ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಇವರೆಲ್ಲ ಎಷ್ಟು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. In fact, the kind of words that people have been using in their presentations, and the confidence and grit of the research that they have understood is really good. I appreciate all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sri Datta sir, for analyzing the paper so beautifully for us. He said wherever he goes to the temple, he would see mouse pads and something akin to a laptop screen. Ishtala temples hogandru, we did not see that. So it's probably like they say, you see what you want to see. So he, being an engineer and being an art connoisseur, is a double bonus for us. From now on, the engineers in the group and everyone else also, let's make that as the next research topic. Thank you, sir, for that idea. And I think what he meant to say was exactly what I was trying to give an introduction about the whole presentation when we began in the morning, that though so many internees come from art background, interns came from art background, whoever went to these temple visits, everyone had their own perspective. The same temple platform gave you so many different ideas that each one did not have to replicate. ಅವಳದ್ರಿಂದ ಒಂಚೂರು ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡೋಣ ಅಂತ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಅನ್ಸ್ಲೇ ಇಲ್ಲ. So that is the beauty. There is so much that it is offering. So when we called upon these respected observers for the session, Dr. Manorama had exactly this particular idea, that we need different perspectives. Temple architecture in terms of construction is an engineer's job. So we wanted somebody like Datta sir, who's also an art connoisseur, to come and tell us what we missed, like a mouse pad. We also wanted Arun Srinivasan sir to come and tell us the dance perspectives. He said, though he's a dancer, temple sculptures na ee drishtinal na nodirlilla. For me, everything is a ranga. For me, everything is characters. So that shows his involvement in art that he is passionately pursuing. Similarly, we'll have one more observer speak about it in the next session for us, Srimati Tejaswini, who's come all the way from Mysore for this. She is a musicologist and she is into training many more children in the art of music. So then we will have another perspective from the interrelated art. So now we break for some snacks. We will resume back exactly at sharp 12. Okay, please come back at 11:45.
So my name is Tuhin. So I've actually done my bachelor.
Oh, Alidya, okay. Now can you hear me? Yes, okay. ರಂಗದ ಒಂದು ರೆಸ್ಪೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಲ್ವಾ ಸರ್, ಕಿರ್ಚೋ ಹಂಗಿಲ್ಲ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ನಿಂತ್ಕೊಂಡು, ಹಾಗಾಗಿ ನಾನು ಸಾಫ್ಟಾಗೆ ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು. Can we all resume back? Have you all settled down? Is there anyone outside, please, who wants to come in and settle down? I hope the break was refreshing and are now everyone eager to absorb more of this symposium. Okay, looks like no. Can we all answer to that question, please? Or should I just shout out, Avengers, assemble? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so moving ahead, we are starting with our second session. And as the protocol demands, I again need to introduce, for the sake of those who have just dropped in, the protocol that we have followed for the research project. The temples built or maintained and developed by the Vijayanagara kings were visited through the course. This included Bhoganandishwara temple at the foothills of Nandi, Alasuru Someshwara temple in the city of Bangalore, Someshwara temple, Kurudumalai or Kudumalai Ganesha temple, Kolaramma temple and Avani temple complex in Kolar, Lepakshi temple in Anandpur district of Andhra Pradesh. Objective of these visits was to study in depth the subject chosen by the particular intern using relevant primary sources in the form of treatises and secondary sources in the form of books, journals, e-journals, reports, articles and essays published in various books and websites, and or interviewing the masters on the particular subject. The research methodology used is that of analytical and observational types of qualitative methodology. This course stands out from the rest because the study was not confined to the sculptures alone, but interdependency of various arts was explored, keeping the temple as base. Though studying these temple structures in a limited time frame was actually challenging, the interns have done a very good job by putting their heart and soul and giving out their very best. Review of literature pertaining to the particular subject was done by all the participants to establish the authenticity of their research. So, moving on to the first paper of the second session, we now have Deepthi R. Bhatt, who is going to present a special article titled The Beauty in the Broken. We will find out from her. Now, Kumari Deepthi Arbhat has been learning Bharatanatyam under Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha since 2018 in Nirmiti. She has successfully completed her Bharatanatyam junior and senior exams conducted by KACEB. She has had the opportunity to perform at various places and cities and be a part of dance dramas as part of Nirmiti in the past years. She is currently studying in second PUC in Sri Kumaran's Children's Home, Composite College, pursuing commerce. Sorry for that slip of a tongue. The moment you say PU, you tend to go to college. We so now we invite Kumari Deepthi R. Bhatt for her special feature article presentation.
Namaste. I am Deepthi R. Bhatt, disciple of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanath. Okay, I should come close. Okay. Yeah. Namaste. I am Deepthi R. Bhatt, disciple of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanath and a junior internee of Nupura Bhramari. Today, I'm here to present my research article, The Beauty in the Broken. Vijayanagara temples are full of breathtaking sculptures. Among these sculptures, we find heartbreaking vandalized sculptures. It gives us immense pain to look at the state of these damaged sculptures, which were once beautiful pieces of art. Every time I came across a broken sculpture, my heart bled black, just like the slides used in the presentation. Though my analysis on broken sculptures have been done only on Vijayanagara temples, we find broken sculptures in all temples across India. There are different causes behind these damages, some of them due to the actions of nature, some of them caused by men in the past, and some of them done unintentionally by people who are trying to modernize or renovate the temples. Let us now look at each of these causes in detail. Natural causes. Due to the easy access to granite, kings in the past used granite rocks to construct their temples. Granite has the tendency to turn black when exposed to sunlight, wind, and water. The rocks absorb the moisture and the heat, due to which we find that the gopuras are slowly turning black. Next, we see the mural paintings of Lepakshi temple. The roofs are full of mural paintings which depict various stories of the past. These temples have developed white patches. These paintings have developed white patches on them. This is due to the cracks and the holes in the roofs of the temple. Many organizations are actively working on the conservation of these paintings by covering the holes or patching the holes up. Next, we have fading of sculptures. In many temples that we visited, we saw that the sculptures are slowly fading away. This might be because the temples were constructed centuries ago, or because of the visitors who constantly touch the sculptures, due to which the structures are slowly fading away. Next, we shall move on to the causes, damages caused by men in the past. Temples have played a very important role in the society from a very long time, and kings in the past constructed temples to store the treasures. In the 16th century, Muslim invaders looted the cities and stole treasures, and on their way back, they destroyed beautiful structures. The invaders were so big on hate and religion that they destroyed beautiful sculptures sculpted by our people. As soon as we enter the temple in Lepakshi, we can't help but notice that the Dwajastamba is full of elephants with broken trunks, and faces. As we move on to the Natya Mantapa, we see the Nataraja and the Nandi. We can notice that the leg of the Nataraja and the Abhaya Hasta has been broken, and the face of the Nandi has been brutally destroyed as well. Further, we see the hanging pillar. There's a story behind the pillar. Initially, it was designed to be completely detached from the floor, but a British man got curious as to how this works. So he hired people to move the pillar in order to see what would happen. So when he did move the pillar, the entire Natya Mantapa began to shake. So he was forced to stop. Because of his curiosity, one of the edges of the pillars are now attached to the ground. As we walk to the outsides of the temple, we find small sculptures. Those are dancing sculptures, and these are people playing instruments. We can see that the face, the legs of these sculptures have been damaged. Some of the sculptures have been so viciously destroyed that we can't even get to know what the sculptor was trying to depict. Next, we move on to the damages caused by renovating the temples. Here, we see that the Gopura has been painted. We need to remember that the sculptors had an option to paint the sculptures themselves, but they chose not to in order to extend the observer's imagination so that he could paint the sculptures the way that he wanted them to. But us we painting the sculptures will break the imagination or limit the imagination of the observer, or we can say it ruins the dhwani. Next, we have decorating of the sculptures. Sculptures which are found outside the Garbhagriha are not meant for worshipping, but devotees, as a form of bhakti, decorate them anyways. We can see that the natural beauty of the sculpture is being ruined. And as we saw previously, constantly touching the sculptures might actually result in fading away of the sculptures. Okay, misplaced sculptures. So, while renovating the temple and removing and replacing the sculptures, there's a high chance that the sculptures might be misplaced. Because as we see here, the location of the sculptures which have been removed are marked with sticky notes. So it can be easily misplaced. I would like to move on to the conclusion now. It is sad how the thoughts and the efforts of a sculptor can be ruined within seconds. Indian art was destroyed by Muslim invaders. We should make sure to not let this happen so that the sculptures are protected for our future generations. We should actively take part in organizations like PPP, public-private participations, which are working towards the conservations of sculptures. We should celebrate and protect the sculptures that have been left behind by our ancestors. Though the sculptures I have presented today are broken, these sculptures uphold the culture and the richness of our country, which makes me really proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepthi. It is sad indeed that such rich culture of ours was vandalized so many times and we did nothing. Muhammad Ghazni had the audacity to come and raid Somnath temple 17 times. What were we doing? What were we doing? We were saying, oh, it's come to Somnath. It's not come to Somnath Pura. So let's wait. I mean, why this callous attitude? I sadly see that this attitude has not gone away from our mindset even now. Even now, as tourists, when we go, if somebody is doing something wrong, according to you, and you try to correct, you are questioned as to so what? Very recently, I had this experience when we went to Orissa, and there was a Sanchi Stupa. There is a Sanchi Stupa constructed by Ashoka himself and later on renovated by organizations, the Japanese organizations. The show clearly says, and there are volunteers walking around you saying, please don't record, please don't record. Everyone is having their mobiles in front of their faces. People standing at the back cannot see what's happening ahead of them because it's a huge crowd. So when I try to tell very obligingly to a gentleman in front of me saying, please, they're saying no recording. Aapko kya? Mere ko kya? What does that attitude mean? So I think somewhere that awareness is still lacking. It doesn't matter whether a handful of us are aware about what is happening. I think it is each and every one of our responsibility to go on telling people without giving a thought. Nanbage ankotare. What are they going to talk about me? Why should it matter to you? If according to you you're doing the right thing, then I think we should just go ahead. Like, can you imagine what she said? The sad thing that the Lepakshi entrance at the Gopura, the Dvajastamba, all the four elephants, they look like dogs, for God's sake. It's not something to laugh about. It's something to feel so disheartened. And I could sense the pain when she was expressing that point in Deepti's voice. I think she has drawn our attention to facets like this, which is why this study is so unique, where there is a social relevance to the study that you've done. It is not just that you went and visited a temple, you recorded whatever you wanted to record, you researched and you came back. No, there is a social connect. There is a social connection that is happening. And I think it is slowly brewing inside all of us. We need to make it come full-fledged and not just simmer on the surface. Now, when we went to Orissa again, like she said, so many things were vandalized by invaders. The temple that you see in Konark is actually not the original temple according to the historians there. When I went and consulted many of them in this trip, there is a broken Gopura right behind the one that is standing today. It had 53 tons of magnet on top of the Kalasha. Can you imagine what that is? 1 ton is 1000 kg. For those of us who are like me, who are not very aware of the engineering terminologies, 1 ton is 1000 kilogram. Like that, 53 tons of magnet was it was strewn together, it was brought together in the form of a kalasha and established on top of a Konark temple. And then because of that magnetic force, the inner sanctum had a sun sculpture which was levitated. This magnet pulled the sun sculpture towards it, and it was in the air, mid-air. The sun sculpture was hanging mid-air. Today it is closed because there is no sun sculpture. Why? Because when the Britishers came in, it seems they broke that magnet piece by piece and they transferred it to their country. So when the magnetic pull that was holding the sun god was gone, the sun sculpture fell from a very drastic height and it shattered to pieces. So this is the sad state. It is time we all wake up. And thank you, Deepti, for that beautiful presentation and a heart-touching presentation. For those of you who wanted to know more, it is still in the book. Kindly make an effort to buy the book in the evening, which will be available. If you've not already booked your copy, please do so, because if you do so within today, then you will get a secret Santa gift. So a book penned by Dr. Manorama herself will be given to you free of cost if you book within today. Please use it as a gift. I think it's a gifting season. Sankranti Bantu, Ugadi Bantu. Let us gift our culture to everyone else. Read books. Reading books is a good habit. Reading Kannada is also a very good habit. Let us inculcate the habit of reading. Yeah. So instead of giving saris, instead of giving jewels, give these books. Buy it, give it, so that they will know what we have lost and what we should work to rebuild. Now, moving on to the next feature article presentation. Again, this is not a research paper, so the time limit is less. For those of you who are wondering why did the bell go off so early, we will now see a very interesting presentation by Kumari Vaishali AV on the probable adaptation of costumes from the pillars of Vijayanagara period temples seen in the beautiful cinematic background. Kumari Vaishali AV is learning Kalakshetra style of Bharatanatyam under Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha since 2010 at Nirmiti. She has completed her junior and senior exams conducted by KACEB, Visharada Pratham, and other few exams by the Akhila Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya. She's also completed her bachelor in fine arts in Bharatanatyam from Tamil University. She has had the opportunity to perform individually as well as in groups at various places as part of Nirmiti. She has completed her master's in economics from Maharani Cluster University. Along with dance, she's also been learning Carnatic vocal. She's interested in sketching and painting. Her work has been published in a book called Nayikantaranga, which speaks about the Ashtanayika Avasthas by Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha. Now we invite Kumari Vaishali AV.
Audible? Yeah, yeah.
Namaste. I'm Vaishali, student of Guru Dr. Vishwanatha and intern of Nrtya-Silpa-Yatra, conducted by Nupura Brahmari and IK Center. Today, my topic is about the probable adoption of costumes seen on the pillars of Vijayanagara temple in cinemas. So, the first question, why did I choose this topic? Is because uh, we are women and we are curious about clothing, right? When we see a person, we just first what we notice is about their clothing or attire. ಏ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ತಗೊಂಡೆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಉಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ಯಾ ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಹೇಗೆ ಉಟ್ಕೊಂಡೆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಮಗೆ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ ಸೊ ಹಾಗೇನೆ ನನಗೂ ಆ ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಬಂತು ಹೇಗೆ ಹುಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿರ್ತಾರೆ ಯಾವ ತರ ಸ್ಟಿಚ್ ಕ್ಲೋತ್ಸಾ ಅಥವಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ಒಂದೇ ಕ್ಲೋತಲ್ಲೇ ಹುಟ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಆ ತರ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಕ್ವೆಶನ್ಸ್ ಬರುತ್ತಲ್ವಾ ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಕ್ರಿಯೇಟೆಡ್ ಅ ಕ್ಯೂರಿಯಾಸಿಟಿ in me, and that is why I have adopted this topic. So we all know that clothing is a very basic need for a human being to protect themselves from a climatic condition or from any animal which try to attack them. And we all know how clothing evolved and their evolution from primitive man to present day. Like primitive one or leaves for animal skin, but now we are wearing different materials like silk, Mysore silk ante, silks ante, different kinds of silk and material, synthetic material, polyester material, linen material, many things. So I want to move to the history, how this cloth evolved. What is the evolution of these costumes? So as we know, primitive man human used animal skin, grass, leaves to cover their body. You can see that. You can notice all those in that picture, the first picture. And during Vedic and Buddhist period, people used to cover themselves with woolen and cotton clothes, and they also use lion, tiger, and deer skins for sit like as a mat material. And fur clothes were introduced or used during Sindhu civilization. Before that, they used to use cotton or woolen materials. And we also know that Lord Shiva is addressed with his costume, like Gaja Charmambara, Vyagra uh, Charmambara, which means the one who wears elephants and tiger skin. The next one is after that later period dyed cloths like dyed cloths and different materials were used during Mauryan periods and upcoming emperors. So as we are looking into Vijayanagara temples, these people led an exuberant and lavish lifestyle. Costume for them was an social status and also a sexual difference between male and female. Both men and women showed utmost importance to decorate themselves. So you'll be noticing all those things in next slides. Women from all classes wore silk saree because silk was the basic material in Vijayanagara period. And you can have that question like ಎಲ್ಲ women ಅದೇ ಸಿಲ್ಕೆ ಹಾಕೊಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರ ಹೇಗೆ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇತ್ತು ರಾಣಿಗೂ ಕಾಮನ್ ಪೀಪಲ್ಗೂ ಏನ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ like queens and other rich people used to wear rich silk materials, and the commoners used to wear like normal silk materials. Like ಇವಾಗ ನಾವ್ ಹೆಂಗೆ ಜಾಸ್ತಿ ಇರೋರ್ಬೇಕು ಲಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಲ್ಕ್ ಸ್ಯಾರಿ ತಗೊಳ್ತೀವಿ, ಕಾಮನ್ ಆಗಿರೋರು 5,000-6,000ಗೆ ಸಿಲ್ಕ್ ಸ್ಯಾರಿ ತಗೋತೀವಲ್ಲ, ದಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಅ ಮೇಜರ್ ಡಿಫ್ರೆನ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ದಟ್ ಪೀರಿಯಡ್. So this picture in this picture we can notice that women and men are wearing different patterns. Like patterns importance, they gave importance to the pattern and the materials also. In this period, we can also notice two major styles or two major styles of costume, which are kache costume and skirt costumes, which are the major styles. ಅದನ್ನ ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬೇರೆ ಇದೆ, ಬಟ್ ಮೇಜರ್ ಆಗಿ ನೀವು ನೋಟಿಸ್ ಮಾಡೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ ಕ್ಲಾತ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ಸ್ ಅಂಡರ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟೂ ಪ್ಯಾಟರ್ನ್ಸ್. The first one is kache costume. The first one is the sculpture, and second one, the middle picture, shows the adaptation done in the movies from the sculpture, and the third one, which is adopted into dance field. Here, there are three layers in a kache. One is the tightened with an ornament gride. So ಸೊಂಟದ ಹತ್ರ ಟೈಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಲೈಕ್ ಕಚ್ಕೊಂಡಿರಂಗೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ದೆನ್ frilled layer which spreads out till ankle level, and there are so many frills in that pattern. We can see tassels in the middle had heavy and attracted border which reach out till the ankle level, and middle of it flows out to the thigh level. Importantly, they are not stitched costumes. Stitched costumes were invented after British invasion. Before that, they used to wear only sari in the way of kache. And the next is kache costume seen in cinemas. How they have adopted this kache costume as a basic thing, and how they have evolved or updated the costumes. We can see there are too many different styles of kache costume which have been adopted and also improved version of costumes from the sculptures. And next we shall move on to skirt costumes. People look quite sensuous in this costume. There are wrapped with single sari which can be a stiff material, because in that picture we can see there are prominent frills is seen, because a silk material ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಕರೆಕ್ಟ್ ಆಗಿ ಸ್ಟಿಫ್ ಆಗಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಕ್ಕಾಗೋದು. ಫ್ಲೋಯಿ ಮೆಟೀರಿಯಲ್ ಡಸಂಟ್ ಲುಕ್ stiff. There is no stiffness in flowy material. Here we can see three types. One is tightened with ornated, and second two layers spread till ankle level, also till near knee level. Even the blouse pattern are different. As is seen in the kache costume, there are different types of blouse. The patterns of blouse is different, and also in skirt costume there are different types in blouse. When it comes to cinema, as we all know, the costume designers of cinema have put their utmost importance to give an iconic dress. Iconic dress andre when we say a green lehenga, what we remember is Devadas movies song Marudala, the green lehenga of Madhuri Dixit, or Devadas Aishwarya Rai's Bengal style of draping, all these things. And thank you, Dhruti. Through this costume, we can identify the character and the movie also. So the costume designers have put their utmost importance to the in designing costumes. And these are the costumes worn by different classes of people, where we can see the Dwarapalikas. The first slide is the Dwarapalika style, which is different from other sculptures. Second one is a dancer. She's wearing skirt costume, and dancers and hunters costume are little more same, but hunters skirt is way more different from a dancer's costume, because hunters usually wear animal fur or leaves to cover themselves according to their work, and common people used to wear shorts or long skirt. And foreigners, I can say these that sixth slide is Japanese foreigners, because that the costume which they are wearing is called as kimono, which is a very Japanese traditional costume. So I can tell that it is a Japanese traveler. And the seventh costume, we can notice that he is wearing a kaupium, which means a langod. They can be a hunter or a very common people or tribe people. And by concluding, I shall conclude with a quote saying, "History repeats, or old is gold." This is because true in this fashion world, ಏನ್ ಹೋಯ್ತೋ ಅದು ವಾಪಸ್ ಹಾಗೆ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ಅಲ್ವಾ. ಕಚ್ಚೆ ನಾವು ಸ್ಕಲ್ಚರಲ್ ನೋಡಿದ್ವಿ, ಲೈಕ್ ವಿಜಯನಗರ ಟೈಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕಚ್ಚೆ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹುಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ರು, ಡಿಫ್ರೆಂಟ್ ಟೈಪ್ ಆಫ್ ಕಚ್ಚೆ ಸ್ಕರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ವರ್ ಓನ್ ಬೈ ದೆಮ್. ಬಟ್ ನೌ ವಿ ಆರ್ ವೇರಿಂಗ್ ದ ಸೇಮ್ ಥಿಂಗ್ ವಿತ್ ಇನ್ ಸಮ್ ಅಪ್ಡೇಷನ್ ವರ್ಷನ್ ಆಫ್ like 2.0 of Vijayanagara period. And from centuries, people have never failed to put their utmost importance in decorating themselves. In fact, ancestors gave importance to their appearance in all the aspect because costume and clothing were the reflection of lifestyle and their standard of living. Thank you all. I would like to before that I just want to show modern days adoption of these costumes in fashion world. This is a skirt costume. In this present world fashion, they have adopted from Vijayanagara costume. They might have adopted, but I can assure that it can be adopted from Vijayanagara costume. And this one is a blouse pattern, which is seen from the sculpture. Blouse patterns are in here we can see they are tube tops, cold shoulders, or tank tops, which might be adopted from Vijayanagara's pattern. And the last one, kache costume, and kache costume is evolved from Vijayanagara costume in this way in present generation. And these are my research or findings from Vijayanagara temple. Thank you so much.
ನಾನು ತುಂಬಾ ಖುಷಿಯಾಗಿದ್ದೆ. ರೀಸೆಂಟಾಗಿ ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಸೋಲ್ಸ್ ಅಂತ ಆದಾಗ ಆ ಥರದ್ದು ಒಂದು ಸ್ಕರ್ಟ್ ತಗೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಬಾಂಬೆ ಫ್ಯಾಷನ್ನು ಅಂತ ಎಲ್ಲರ ಹತ್ರ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು ಶಿ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಬ್ರೋಕ್ ದಟ್ ಇಲ್ಯೂಷನ್. ನಥಿಂಗ್ ನ್ಯೂ, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಕಮ್ ಫ್ರಮ್ ದೇರ್ ಓನ್ಲಿ, ನಮ್ದಂತ ಏನಿಲ್ಲ. ಓಕೆ, ನಾವು I'm sorry, Rohini will be presenting now, not Divya. All right, okay. So just summarizing Vaishali's paper presentation, few things that I love the most. One is Dhriti got her chance. ಅವಳು ಅವಾಗಲೇ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು ಬ್ರೇಕಲ್ಲಿ, ಬರೀ ಒಂದು ಬೆಲ್ ಹೊಡಿತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ಅಕ್ಕ, 2 ಬೆಲ್ಲು ಹೊಡಿಬೇಕು ಆಸೆ ನನಗೆ, ಯಾರು ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಮುಗಿಸ್ತಾನೆ ಇಲ್ವಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. Vaishali, you made her wish come true. Dhriti happy now, I guess. But Vaishali is like, hodkotya hodko, you do it, so what? I am here to finish my project and go. I don't care. Bell adrenu, no bell adrenu anta. So I hope I had that confidence. Al one bell adagle il kaalan nadka shuru agogbiಟ್ಟಿರುತ್ತೆ. But anyway, good, great job, Vaishali. And like she said, what I loved, one thing that most probably observers are more efficient to talk about this, but I just wanted to put forth my 2 cents. When we did our MFA, under Kalai University, our mentors, that is Dr. Dharita Vishwanatha and Dr. Priyashri Rao, told us one thing. We don't care what topic you choose, whether it is your seminar or your assignments or your research paper, choose anything you want. Make sure you connect it to dance. That's the only key point we had to keep in our mind. See how beautifully she started from sculptures, she went to movies, then she did connect to dance. That's a great job there, Vaishali, and full marks from my side, if that counts. So moving on to the next paper presentation. It is a beautifully done research paper. Can I have your title, please? Because I left it there. I thought it was Divya's this time. No worries. So the next research-based paper presentation is by Srimati Rohini. Srimati Rohini is trained under illustrious gurus, Guru Dr. Hema Govindarajan, Karnataka Kalashri, Shantala Awardi, Guru B. Bhanumati Ma'am, Guru Srimati Sheila Chandrasekhar. She's cleared her junior and senior dance exams and Arangetram at the age of 15. She has graduated in Masters of Fine Arts and from Annamalai University. She has performed on various occasions on national and international stages. She was invited as part of the Nrtya-Mihira ensemble to present 2 thematic productions on the occasion of 50th year of Indian independence in Nairobi, Kenya, jointly organized by the South Indian Cultural Association and Indian High Commission, Nairobi. She is also a student of Carnatic music, being trained under Guru Vidushi H. Geeta and Natuvangam under Sri Narayana Swami sir. While she runs her own dance school training artists, she also continues to train in Abhinaya and Shastra aspect of Bharatanatyam under Guru Srimati Sheila Chandrasekhar. Today, she will be talking about analysis of social life sculptures of Vijayanagara between 14th to 16th century. It's a huge topic. I have no idea how she covered it. Only somebody with the caliber of Rohini could have done this, because I have seen her work with so much of dedication. Somebody who just gives up at the fag end, I've never seen that she can give up. And the beauty of that is she not only never gives up for herself, she never gives up on her friends either. So I think that's a huge quality that we all can take away from her. Presenting in front of you, Srimati Rohini.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I will be speaking on the analysis of social life sculptures of Vijayanagar between 14th and 16th century. Okay.
Ma'am, all serious ಕೈ ಎತ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾಳೆ ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ.
Social life. The sculptures in the temples of Vijayanagara Empire play a very important role in understanding various aspects of society. Vijayanagara artists had evolved their own style. For sculptures of deities and religious icons, they generally followed the artistic guidelines of Shilpa Shastra. However, for the portrayal of human beings, they relied more on observation than on prescriptions of the texts. A large number of social themes which deviated from the conventional style of sculpting, like women in daily life, acrobats, jugglers, wrestlers, dancers, animals, birds, and so on, were included into this newly introduced genre of architecture. These sculptures were more like exhibits showcasing every aspect of the society of contemporary times. Here we see the sculptures of people engaged in various routines in their daily life. A lady holding a basket, a lady churning curd, a lady lighting lamp, a lady cleaning vessels, gurukula, women putting a child to sleep, a man carrying a child on his shoulder, a woman bathing her child. Here we have an old man with his umbrella, a blacksmith, a rural man, a Brahmin, a rural woman, a cowherd. And interestingly, we have come across a sculpture here from Bhoganandishwara temple, which shows a case of infidelity. The wife is caught red handed with her lover, and the husband is about to punch him, and the wife is shown pleading mercy for her lover. The sculpture of a man holding jackfruit on his head is found profusely carved in various places in the temple next to Lord Ganesha, on the gopura, on the lintel, on the outer wall, and on the pillars. The jackfruit had a good claim to be the distinctive member of the flora family during this period and hence made it to the sculptural display in the presence of the temple. The accounts of the foreign travelers majorly include this fruit in documenting the food habits of the empire. Saint Kanakadasa, who lived in the first half of the 16th century, also mentions jackfruit in his poetry. It seems that Vijayanagara people were worshippers of beauty. The sculptures depict various poses of women engaged in dressing, the women in standing and sitting postures, applying the tilaka on her forehead. An ancient practice signifying good fortune seems to have been a favorite motif of sculptors. Different shapes and sizes of mirrors also can be seen in these sculptures. Long coat, kabaya, had replaced that of Chalukyan times and continued in Vijayanagara period. The kabaya and kulavi, the cap, became a new courtly dress in the Vijayanagara period, which was an adoption from the Islamic religion in the region. Let's move on to the game, sports, and pastime. Sculptures stand testimony to these sports, which were extremely popular preoccupations among men. These, there were several sports and amusements during Vijayanagara times for different classes of people. These activities formed a major pastime of the inhabitants. The Vijayanagara period, being the age of strength and valor, physical culture was given proper attention not only by the royalty and the nobility, but by the commoners as well. Horse riding, hunting, wrestling, fencing, and dueling were common in the Vijayanagara Empire, and instances of it were recorded independently by Portuguese travelers. A good number of sculptures show women and men spending time with their pets, proves the fact that they gave special attention in rearing these birds. We see that amongst all the birds, parrots occupy an important place. The next entertainers were acrobatic teams. Acrobatic teams were the chief entertainers for rural population. They belonged to a community called Dombaras, who moved from place to place and entertained kings, nobles, and common people alike who gathered at the capital. A snake charmer is shown blowing the pungi, a folk music instrument, in front of a cobra, is the most obvious sculpture found in the temples of Vijayanagar. Clowns of various description occur frequently as a decorative motif on pillars. The knock-kneed clown here is seen smiling and jolly countenance, which makes him a jovial figure. We next move on to the group dances, Kolata and Dapu dance. Both men and women carried out their respective duties during the day, and nights were filled with entertainment, dance, and merrymaking. The streets were filled with men and women spending their time happy and enjoying. Every morning and evening, the houses were filled with music and songs. The people spent their evenings learning dance, music, and arts, other arts. The people of Vijayanagara times, as heirs to a rich heritage of music and dance, were very fond of both the arts, music, and dance, which formed an inseparable part of their everyday life and activity. Beautifully choreographed dance, group dances in geometrical patterns of both genders, dancing in pairs, became highly popular during the period due to its mass appeal. Even people with lesser dancing abilities could join and participate in their colorful costumes and various props. Thus, people derived a sense of satisfaction of being a part of these festivities. The sculptural representation of the entire sequence of the dance of Vasantotsava, Spring Festival, which was a colorful extravaganza, can be visualized by graceful sculptures on the walls near ceiling. Dapu. Dapu is a percussion instrument which was originally used for making announcements of matters of importance. The use of this instrument during Vijayanagara period seems to be very popular, which is evident in these sculptures. The animals. The Vijayanagara architects have left behind them definite evidence of their intimate acquaintance with the animals of the country. However, that may be to the three animals which have become famous in the Hindu classics because of their association with the greatness of Indra, the cow, the horse, and the elephant, the Vijayanagara princess became very partial, says Saletore. The significance of the sacred cow during the Vijayanagara period, where it was looked upon with great reverence, is seen in innumerable sculptures at various places in the temple. Elephants formed a unit of Vijayanagara army. According to the accounts of the visitors, they were treated with great reverence. At Vijayanagara, the horse was not only status symbol because being a rare and costly animal, but was also held in great reverence. The medieval monarchs shared with the ancients the affection which they had for the horse. We now move on to the Vijayanagara coinage, which has sculptural parallels. The coinage of Vijayanagara is unique among Indian coin series in that a number of coin types have close sculptural parallels. The standard currency of the empire was the gold pagoda or varaha of 3.4 grams, which was named after the insignia of the empire carrying the varaha, that is boar. Special commemorative coins were also minted on special occasions like victories in war. Here is a description of a coin bearing Hanuman and Garuda figures on the obverse side. The adoption of Hanuman figure could be in honor of the new capital of the dynasty on the land of Kishkinda, which once served as the kingdom of Vanaras. Accordingly, the artists have carved numerous images of monkeys on the pillars of the temples. The adoption of the emblem of Hanuman and Garuda by the first two kings of Vijayanagara tends to prove that the family had greater affinities for Kadambas with the Hanuman flag and Yadavas with the Garuda ensign, who had held sway for about 2 centuries prior to their rise. It is noteworthy that Hanuman and Garuda are most revered in the Vaishnava temples. The adoption of the Vaishnava as well as Shaiva symbols on the obverse indicates that the kings embraced all schools of thought. Here, in the next slide, we have sculptural parallels to coins of Lord Venkateshwara, Balakrishna, Gandaberunda, Shiva Parvati, Nandi, and Gaja. A number of religions were present during the Vijayanagara rule. The spirit of religious tolerance was followed by all the kings of Vijayanagara, which is evident through the various epigraphical, inscriptional, literary, and numismatic sources. The Pampa Mahatmya names several Shaiva sects and types of practitioners, including Shaivas, Maha, Mahamaheshwaras, Pashupatas, Kalamukhas, and Mahavratas or Kapalikas. Many of these Shaiva groups are well attested in South India, and indeed, there is a strong record of their existence at Hampi and Sri Shailam. The abundant presence of Bhairava sculpted imagery across the Vijayanagara temple structures attests to strong Kalamukha activity within the capital. Another school of medieval Hindu mysticism which flourished in the Deccan was the Natha Sampradaya, founded by Matsyendranatha and Gorakhnatha. We find these Natha sculptures in a series starting from Matsyendranatha to Revanatha in a series in Alsur temple. Otherwise, in other temples, you find it in different places. Veerashaivism was influential in the later Sangama period. The Veerashaiva or Lingayat sect, which was promulgated in Karnataka by Basavanna in the reign of Bijala, was an offshoot of Veerashaivism. Vaishnavism received a great impetus in South India because of the work of the two great acharyas, Ramanuja and Madhava. Worship of Saptamatrikas and Nagas was another important and popular cult in Vijayanagara Empire. Most of the temples of Vijayanagara contain sculptural representations of the Saptamatrikas. People worshipped the seven deities for the sake of progeny. It was believed that the worshipping of Nagas would, in fulfillment of their vow, confer motherhood on women who installed Nagarakal when they were blessed with offspring. The emperors of Vijayanagara worshipped the Nagas and considered Shiva as Naganatha. Male and female Nagas were also carved in stone in various temples. We now move on to the sculptural parallels to pilgrim places. The Vijayanagara rulers encouraged pilgrimage within their own empire. Besides, visits to northern sacred sites had become increasingly difficult due to occupation of north by the Muslims. Some of the pilgrimage centers were Chidambaram, Virupaksham, Kalahasti, Tirupati, Kanchi, Srisailam, Tiruvannamalai, Harihara, Ahobilam. Several of these were considered to be substitutes of the northern pilgrimage sites. For instance, a visit to Ekamrata, I'm sorry, a visit to Ekamranatha in Kanchi was equivalent to a visit to Varanasi. The Vijayanagara rulers themselves often undertook pilgrimage. The sculptures also epitomize the holy pilgrimage places. With this, I come to the end of the presentation. Conclusion is, we find a vast repertoire of non-religious themes in the carvings in all the temples of Vijayanagara. Documentation in the form of temple sculptures of this period give a beautiful picture to visualize and understand the social life better. The artistic documentation of customs and traditions through the sculptures and paintings are invaluable historical evidences and are of cultural significance. The economic condition or caste of a person did not prevent their representation in the form of sculpture in the temple, which shows that every stratum of the society was treated with equal respect. The aesthetic expression of the sculptors were also the reflections of the literature written by the foreign travelers and scholars of the period. Most of the traditions have been passed down and is seen in the present day social life too. Finally, in the words of R.N. Saleture, probably in the whole range of South Indian sculptures, it would be difficult to find a match to vie with the variety of Vijayanagara sculptures. I would like to thank Manorama ma'am, Shalini ma'am, and Dharita ma'am, and definitely all my co-internees and my friend Divya here for helping me through this presentation and my internship. Thank you all.
Thank you, Rohini, for that extensive presentation on the social lifestyle of Vijayanagara Empire. ಅಬ್ಬಬ್ಬಬ್ಬಾ ಇದ್ದಿದ್ದ ಈ ದೇವಸ್ಥಾನದಲ್ಲಿ ಇಷ್ಟೊಂದು ಇನ್ಫಾರ್ಮೇಶನ್ ಕಲೆಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡು ಬಂದ್ಬಿಟ್ರು, ದೈತ್ಯಾಕಾರದ ಪ್ರತಿಭೆ. ಇನ್ನು ಇವ್ರನ್ನ ಏನಾದ್ರು ನೀವು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ರೌಂಡ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ತಮಿಳ್ನಾಡುಗೆಲ್ಲ ಕರ್ಕೊಂಡು ಹೋಗ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆಲ್ಲ ಏನೋ ಚಾನ್ಸೇ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಎಲ್ಲೇ ಅವರೇ ಮುಗಿಸ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡ್ತಾರೆ. So much of information gathered in this short span of time is commendable. It is just amazing the job you have done. You've not left, yes, she's not left any aspect untouched. Whether it is dressing style, whether it is animals, whether it is sports, games, dances, what not. ಐ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಮಧ್ಯದಲ್ಲೆಲ್ಲ ಒಂದು ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ರಸಗುಲ್ಲ ಬಾದಾಮಿ ಆ ಥರದ್ದು ಇದು ಅಂತ ಸೇರಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದ್ರೆ ಕಂಪ್ಲೀಟ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿರೋದೇನೋ, ಇನ್ನೇನು ಬಾಕಿ ಉಳ್ಕೊಂತಾನೆ ಇರಲಿಲ್ಲ ಹ್ಯೂಮನ್ ಲೈಫ್ ಸ್ಟೈಲ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ. ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟೇ 4 ಪೇಜ್ ಇದೆಯಂತೆ, ಮನೋರಮಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್ ಹೇಳ್ತಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಆ ರೆಫರೆನ್ಸ್ ಲಿಸ್ಟ್ ಓದೋಷ್ಟಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಧ ಸುಸ್ತಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ ಕೆಲವ್ರಿಗೆ. I mean, look at the intricacies of her research. She's gone on to collect and images of those coins that has Bukkaraya written clearly on it. It's so amazing to see that kind of hard work put into your whatever that is that you're doing. And she also spoke about religious harmony. You see how at the beginning of each session I keep telling you everything is interrelated. Whenever there has been a paper presentation, it is not that we were never told to focus only on our particular topic. That's the beauty of the guides involved in this particular mentoring project. They told us, look at every aspect of it and then you connect the dots, Anta, which is done so beautifully across the symposium. ನವನಾಥ ಸಪ್ತಮಾತ್ರಿಕಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಕಾನ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಏನೇ ಎಷ್ಟೋ ಜನ ಡಾನ್ಸರ್ಸ್ಗಳಿಗೂ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲ್ಲ. ದಿಸ್ ಐ ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಆಬ್ವಿಯಸ್ಲಿ ಟೆಲ್ ಯು ವಿತ್ ಅಥೆಂಟಿಸಿಟಿ ಬಿಕಾಸ್ ನನಗೆ ಗೊತ್ತಿರಲಿಲ್ಲ ನವನಾಥ ಅಂತ for a long time. Not now, but yes, for a long time I didn't know there was a concept of Navanatha, probably because we are not into the habit of reading scriptures in their original language that was given to us. We only, because of lack of language, we only read the translations that are given to us, and most of the important points get missed. But still, she has gone on to record the names of each of those Navanathas and Saptamatrikas also. So we only know Saptamatrika, then Aindrani, everything has been so meticulously compiled and presented before you. Hats off to you, Rohini. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. The next paper for the session is a special article titled Ankita research article. I'm very sorry. The next paper is a research article by Kumari Ankita Srinivas, who has been training in Bharatnatyam under Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha since 2013. She has successfully completed Bharatnatyam Junior, Senior, and Akhila Bharatiya Gandharva Mahavidyalaya exams. She has had the opportunity to perform at various places. She has completed a certification course, Natya Lankara, organized by Nupura Brahmari, and assisted Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha in the certification course on Aesthetics of Natuvangam, organized by the same. Ankita is currently studying second PU in Transcend Group of Institutions pursuing commerce. She will be talking about multifaceted women of Vijayanagara. It would be incomplete if not.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Good afternoon to everyone present here. Myself, Ankita Srinivas, disciple of Dr. Dwarita Vishwanatha and junior intern in the internship Nrtya-Silpa 2022. Continuing right from where Rohini Akka left off, multifaceted woman of Vijayanagara is my topic for today. The rise of Vijayanagara Empire is efficient because of its rulers and citizens who manage to experience true growth in monetary and non-monetary terms. Also, the religious tolerance and renaissance of art in the empire gave rise to reformations like the Bhakti movement. So when such a harmonious society is in front of you, you wonder, what is the role of each woman? What economic system did it follow to achieve this? The Shilpa Prakasha says, as a house without a wife, as playful enjoyment without a woman, so without the figure of woman, art will be deficient and bear no fruit. Various treatises and texts have mentioned economic positions and roles of women based on characteristics and features. We all know Divya, Manava, Mishra classification that was given in Natya Shastra based on birth, or the Padmini, Chitrini, Shankini, Hastini based on physical characteristics. The Shilpa Prakasha provides us with a classification of Alasa Kanyas, which was the baseline of sculptures in Orissa temples. In my paper, you will mostly find the Alasa Kanyas that are Nartaki, Mardala, Shukasarika, and Chamara. Later, in time of Vijayanagara, we can see classification based on class, where we had nobility, middle class, lower class, and based on professions, the women who lived in royal palaces, courtesans, temple dancers, and other fields. Obviously, to match their societal positions and occupations, they were expected to dress in cosmetics and decorative ornaments and clothings to add to their apparent beauty. On the other hand, courtesans or vaishyas enhance their appearance to do well in their professions. We have first classification as the noblewoman. As with privilege comes the opportunity to learn, they were taught to read and write and were trained in dance and music. They were efficient rulers, governors, and Mahamandaleshwaras or provincial rulers. Throughout history, we can see that ill health was prevented by sufficient supply of water. And we can see texts that says, Obayabe, or an administrative ruler, came up with stone water trough built on the right bank of Turtukaluwe. We have Chinnamamba, who donated for water tank. And we have Kuppayani, who funded for building irrigation channels in Tirumala. Here we have an example of from Someshwara temple. You need to remember that leisure was an elitist activity. In this figure, you can see that a woman is engaged in putting tilaka on her forehead with the aid of a mirror. This can come under the Alasa Kanya Adarpana. Her profuse jewelry, plated braid, vritta kundalas, neck chains, bangles, bracelets, anklets are fine examples of her noble position in the society. She also is a fine example of Vasika Sajika Nayaka, a division among the Ashtanayakas. Her grand decoration is definitely a feature of a lady of royalty. We can see other examples from other temple visits that we have done in the internship. The first three come under a darpana, and figure 5 comes under a chamara, or a woman who is holding a fly whisk. In the empire of Vijayanagara, dancers were broadly classified into two groups: courtesans, those who performed in royal courts, and devadasis, those who performed in temples. In the second classification, we will see courtesans. Unlike today's stigmatization of courtesans or prostitutes, we can see that in the empire of courtesans, they had a very well settled position in the society. They were taught to sing and dance from an early age, had to be well learned scholar, and clever in gambling and conversation making to invite men of power and wealth in their way. Vaishyas were well trained in 64 kalas and were guardians and connoisseurs of art. They were also spies or messengers of kings and wars, and they had to accompany them through places. And due to their prestigious position in the society, they also had the opportunity to contribute to the public welfare. In fact, Chinna Devi, the queen consort of Emperor Krishna Devaraya, was an excellent court dancer before wedlock and profusely contributed to art in her time. Figure 6, we can see that it is a court lady or a mistress. Her big bun, minimum jewelry, and importantly, the sari falling, waist below, are important features of a courtesan. She seems to be offering a fruit to her companion. The third classification is Devadasis or other dancers. We all know temples were not just a place of worship, but also a multifarious setting where it was a space for accommodation and employment, an institution for education and banking, a place for justice and showcasing art. Temple dancers, or servants of gods, provided grants and received them from high profiles. They took care of the temples and made sure everything was in place. They were also mostly the stimulation for inspiration in temple sculptors' minds, which resulted in the beautiful sculptures that we see today. Figure 7, we see a Margi dancer, the Nartaki, an Alasa Kanya. Her feet are in Pashwapada and she sits in Vaishaka. Her posture complements her costume because the frills are shown off in a very beautiful manner. Her gaze is in Avalokita and she is adorned with Vritta Kundalas and Chandraharas. These are other examples of dancers. In figure 8, she sits in Urdhvachanu and she holds a very noticeable Hamsasya Hasta. In figure 11, she sits in Atibanga and is decorated with various ornaments. She also wears thin pants that complements her skirt. It is interesting to notice that she is designed in a way where she stands parallel to the Yari sculptures in the background. Figure 9 and 10 are the sculptures that you can see in the door panels, doorways, walls, and pillars of Lepakshi temple. They show off nartakis, wind and percussion instrumentalists, and kolata dancers. As we know, kolata dancers or kolata was a very popular folk dance in the Vijayanagaran Empire, and it is said that Devadasis, courtesans, and other dancers enthusiastically took part in the events of the community, such as the spring festival Vasantotsava. These panels also show off tabla players or a mardala player, also a division of an alasakanya. Fourth classification, we have upper class women. This is a this mural painting in Lepakshi temple is a fine example of attire differentiation in accordance with economic disposition. Draped fire-long white garment of thin cloth, one portion is tied stiffly around the waist and the other is thrown over their arm, leaving the breasts and shoulder uncarved. In figure 12, although the central piece of the painting is goddess Parvati in green, the stylized saris and varied hairstyles of her companions add equal or more charm. The fifth classification is the engagement of women in other activities. Figure 13 and 14 from Kolarama temple are eye-catching huntresses. Their distinct features are fully braided hair, rich ornaments, costume designed with patra or leaves for better camouflage, anklets devoid of bells that do not cause noise, and bows and arrows, obviously. In figure 12, the huntress holds her captured peacock with pride. In both the figures, their pet parrots and monkeys respectively accompany them. The one with the pet parrot can be recognized as a Shukasarika. One of their legs raised while they hold on to the head of their attendant's head as gratitude for their picking the thorns that might have pricked her feet during hunting. Here are other examples of huntresses from Someshwara temple. The sixth classification, we have working class women. Portuguese explorer Nunes says that a large number of women were employed in the royal palace, were maids, servants, cooks, cloth washers, guards, etc. There were also soothsayers, wrestlers, astrologers, and women of account keeping. Since they were well into physical health, they were also imparted with physical education. They were involved remotely in defense and military. It is said that the queen had her own set of female guards who would take responsibility during public cultural events, as one I mentioned before, like the Vasantotsava. Any message that must be passed to the queen had to fall into the ears of the guards firstly. Figure 18 to 21 show us guards or Dwarapalikas. They were a very noticeable feature, kulavi, a popular headgear in those times, and simple costumes in accordance with their occupation. The seventh classification, we have the everyday life. Figure 22 shows us women in domestic life. It shows us mother and her children having a very fun time. A very beautiful example of motherhood. It shows that the women are dressed in simple low-waisted skirts and a single neck piece. In figure 21, you can see arrangement of vessels, a fire lantern, and this setting can be understood as a kitchen. She wears a big bun, circular earrings, and offers something, perhaps food to the other. Figure 21, we can see that it's a lady storing butter, mayhaps after the process of churning. She has her hair open, denoting running a homely errand. Last but not the least, even women who were housewives are important contributing members of the society. The people of Vijayanagara had linguistic proficiency in the languages Sanskrit, Kannada, Telugu, and Tamil languages, and women were encouraged to contribute too. Notable poets include Ganga Devi, a queen consort of Kumara Kampanna, who wrote a narrative named Madura Vijayam on conquest of Madurai Sultanate by her husband, and Tirumalamba, a poet in the empire, wrote Varadambika Parinayam on the account of the marriage King Achyuta Devaraya. Some other known writers are Attukuri Molla, Madhuravani, etc. Numerous challenges with respect to existence of women have been immemorial. Although Vijayanagara was not an entirely perfect, just society, it achieved equity in many terms. What is it that an artist shows on sculptures is a thought to ponder upon. A mind of the sculptor sees all equal, and it is in his hands to show the beautiful or the grotesque, the good or the bad. They are driven by an innate desire to create like all artists and show us whatever an era has to offer to the world. As G.S. Shivarudrappa once aptly wrote, Stri endare ashte sake, there is much to what a woman can achieve when empowered. As days and years roll, humankind must evoke the Shilpi in themselves and ask a question to each other. Are we really evolving forwards? Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita, for tickling our brains and asking a very apt question for the day when everyone is shouting and screaming about feminism. Are we really moving forward? She just said a beautiful quote from Sri G.S. Shivarudrappa, Stri endare ashte sake. What we have done is we've called her a superwoman, we've assumed her and given her 20 hands, and we've made her stand in the kitchen, in the office with those 20 hands and expect her to do the job of 20 people. All the time we are only applauding her and saying, oh wow, you're doing a great job. Have even bothered to sit back and think, what is it that she wanted to do? If given that extra 1 hour in the morning when she has to be in the kitchen, or 1 hour in the night when she has to put the child to bed, what is it that she would want to do? Have you ever bothered to ask that question? As women, forget about men, as women, do we ask this question to the women in our own family, to our daughters, to our daughter-in-laws, to our mothers-in-law, to our mothers? I think it is time that we all should start doing this, and not just men. There's no point in blaming men for inequality when we women are not ready to give it to other women in the country. Thank you, Ankita, for that. She spoke about supply of water. Have you ever bothered while sitting even in a symposium like this? You are actually thirsty. You don't realize it. But if somebody gets you a glass of water, you are ever thankful. You're like, Amrita sikdang kushi agate. That is the beauty of supplying water. It is Jiva Rasa. Without that, without elixir of life, there is nothing that you can do. So we don't realize the importance. ಅವ್ರೇನು ನೀರು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ನೀವು ಮದ್ವೆ ಮನೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿ ನೀರು ಹಾಕೋರ್ಗೇನೆ ಕಾಯ್ತಾ ಇರ್ತಾರೆ ಜನ ನೀರು ಬರಕ್ಕೆ ಹೇಳಪ್ಪ that is the importance. So even a trivial job like that, which is actually so significant, was carried out by the women fraternity. Then she goes on to say Veshya. What a sad thing that we have come to demean that word so much over the generations. Have you ever realized she spoke about the Vaishyas being spies or messengers for kings? So many wars must have been averted. So much of loss of life and bloodshed must have been averted because of a role that the Vaishya played in a society. They took care of temples, which is what is the need of the hour today. So I think we have a lot to learn from that generation. Maybe a visit to temple every now and then, studying their lifestyle, their societal structure, would help improve today's as well. We would like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Sapna Nayak from Goa. She has done her studies on dance development, and she's been contributing a lot to the propagation of our art in Goa and the surrounding areas, guided by Nupura Brahmari. Welcome, ma'am. We also would like to, please, artists deserve all the applause. Thank you, ma'am. We would also like to acknowledge presence of Sri Chetan Gangadkar, founder director, co-founder director of Natya Ninada organization in Bangalore, Hebbal, who is currently pursuing his PhD. Welcome, sir. We would like to also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Usha and Srimati Suma Aitar, senior disciples of Guru Lalita Srinivasan, ma'am. Dr. Usha and Dr. Sapna Nayak have recently been awarded a PhD for their dance-related research work. Congratulations and welcome to you both. We would also like to acknowledge presence of Srimati Savitri, a very reputed Sanskrit teacher and disciple of Nirupama Rajendra ji, and she is wife of a well-known researcher and sculpture-related development specialist, Sri Arjun Bharadwaj. Welcome, ma'am. We would also like to welcome and acknowledge the presence of Sri Guru Raj Vasishtha, founder Sudhindra Kala Kendra, which was exclusively built as a training ground for men in the art of Bharatanatyam. Welcome, Sri Guru Raj. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of Srimati Lakshmi Shravan, all the way from Shivamogga. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules and being with us. We would like to have their beautiful and guiding observations by our observers once again. But before I go to that, I would like to introduce them for the benefit of all present here. Our first observer for today, Sri Arun Srinivasan sir. He is an HR manager and an administrator by profession, and Bharatanatyam is a passionate pursuit. A life science graduate, Arun has 2 master degrees and a PhD in dance to be awarded in February 2023. Having studied under Guru Srimati Gayatri Keshavan, a direct disciple of Kattumannar Kovil Muthukumara Pillai of the Sadal tradition for 14 years, Arun further imbibed nuances of dance and aspects of stage presentation from Guru Satyanarayan Raju and Dr. Shobha Shashikumar. Arun has traveled across India as a freelancer, a soloist, and a principal choreographer of various ensembles since 20 years. With interest in allied fields, literature, sculpture, and music, Arun is one among the sought-after research consultant and choreographer in the industry. It is no wonder that when I was sitting and cracking my head about one particular varna in one particular language on one particular god, everybody guided me to Arun sir. They said he's the one person who can help you. Please go ask him. So I've been for past 2 years during the Corona times. All I've done is call him up, message him, ask him how it was, where it was, and he went on to the extent of providing me each and every tiny little detail of the most unheard varna in the art circuit and helped us with it. I think the humility of him should be appreciated and applauded. 2 master degree holder and a PhD holder is ready to help anybody calling and asking for anything related to research in the art field. Thank you, sir, for being with us, and we would like to have your opinions on the second session of the paper presentation. Please come.
Thank you. I think the second session began with a wonderful note on directing us to a wonderful topic about the beauty in the broken. It is very, very disheartening that we've been vandalized by so many people. But then, this is just for my satisfaction that there are organizations and there are many animators today who have been working on animation of these broken sculptures in and transforming them into cartoons and sculptures. I'm not able to recall the Instagram page, but then there are about 2 3 Instagram pages which take up these broken sculptures and then animate them to finish the entire sculpture and give us the holistic picture of how they were. This was something which struck me immediately, but then I browsed it as well, but then I couldn't find the actual page. And the second point is that, um, see, destruction happened, yes, but then we should also remember that destructions was equally encouraged by people who were influenced by these vandalizers. I can relate to this because in the Sadar tradition or in the Devadasi tradition, it is very, very evident that the vandalization, as much as it was foreign, it was also developed and encouraged by Indian rulers and those in power. So this is something which I wanted to mention. This is not an observation, but then something I wanted to share. Uh, with respect to costumes and costumes and accessories and jewelries and everything, it is so fascinating that sculptures give us a lot and lot of inputs about what we wear, how we wear, and when do we wear it. In these sculptures, if we observe, there is something called artistic conventions, in the sense of, see, every art form is basically expression oriented. So there are certain conventions and techniques which influence, which sort of categorize these, whether it is a sculpture, whether it is a dance, whether it is a music. So if we observe these specific techniques and specific conventions, we get to understand their emotional, the emotional mood, the bhava behind these sculptures. For example, there is something called Kavi Samaya, or I would say poetic convention in the Indian aesthetics tradition, which talks about what a specific intention is versus its, versus its convention. For example, somebody wearing, I mean, in the sculpture there, somebody wearing loose clothes or somebody wearing very free clothes meant that she was an abhisarika, she might be an abhisarika, or she might be a vasaka sajja also. So observing these, relationship between the bhava and the artistic convention will give us more light into these, um, into more light into these areas. Another very very specific point which I wanted to share, because I read it somewhere when I was reading something about sculptures. This is regarding social life aspects, and then one particular sculpture held a jackfruit. So I read this somewhere. This was also very intriguing for me also. So I read it somewhere. I'm not able to recall the book here. So jackfruit or jackfruit tree is very very considered very very auspicious. Number one, it is very heavy, which means it is, which is very useful in construction of pillars and everything. Number two, it is used to make, musical instruments, very very auspicious. And number three, jackfruit was considered, I mean, rather was portrayed by Vijayanagara kings, because jackfruit, as a fruit, it's very difficult to, open it. You have to have a lot of effort, which signified the very attitude of the Vijayanagara kings. We included everything into it. The Sanskritika Sauhardate, which Bhavani presented in the first session, was sort of symbolized by the use of jackfruit. This is something I want, which sort of immediately, triggered in my mind when I heard the second presentation. uh, Again, if these papers, if there is an opportunity, and this is a request from my end, to the organization, if these papers could be converted into like projects of some kind. I don't know if there is a plan going on, or if it will be continued, but then if it can be converted into some sort of projects, like mini projects, say for example 3 months, 4 months, on just these topics, these will be wonderful wonderful contributions, to the development of the field, whether it is sculpture related studies or dance or any interrelated allied arts. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, sir, for that wonderful summarization of all the sessions and giving us your 2 cents about the papers presented here. I would now like to introduce our second observer for the session, Sri R. Dattakumar sir, who is again a PhD holder and head of operations at Enhanced Education Private Limited. He is currently supporting an educational technology startup in the domain of pharmacy education. He was the senior manager, Wipro Technologies Talent Transformation, head of Vishwesvaraya Technological University Academy for Professional Development, and special officer for VTU e-learning. His extracurricular activities include guide and mentor to many teachers and students across engineering colleges in India, Kannada voiceover artist for technical documentaries, and an avid listener of Carnatic classical music. We are very fortunate to have him again with us for the second session. I would now like to have his valuable opinion shared with all of us about the papers presented in the second session.
Thank you for this. Now it's just 1 cent, it's not 2 cents. When I was just hearing about Deepthi Bhatt's presentation on the beauty in the broken, a couple of things came to my mind, particularly the 46 musical pillars which are there in Vijayanagaram. They are made for touch, because you get the essence of music when you hit it. So the wear out must have been considered that time itself, maybe lakhs and lakhs of people would have touched it, hit it, done whatever, but still they are what they are now. If you go and look at them, so this thing kindled in me that maybe at least in engineering we call it, particularly in metallurgy we call it hardening. So those stones must have been given a process or a special process where it would have got hardened there, which would have taken the time testing of people doing all kinds of things with it. So that's one thing that came to my mind when I looked at it. When I looked at Vaishali's presentation on adaptations of costumes, once at the end, to are we getting back to primitive with all the toned jeans around? And analysis of social life cultures, ರೋಹಿಣಿ ಅವ್ರದ್ದು ನೋಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾಗ, ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಅನಿಮಲ್ಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ನಾವು ಎಷ್ಟು ಡೊಮೆಸ್ಟಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದೀವಿ ನಾಯಿಗಳನ್ನ ಮತ್ತೆ ಬೆಕ್ಕುಗಳನ್ನ, ಅದೆಲ್ಲೂ ಕಾಣ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಅಥವಾ ನಾಟ್ಯದಲ್ಲೂ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ಬಂದಿರೋ ಸಂದರ್ಭಗಳನ್ನ ನಾನು ನೋಡಿಲ್ಲ. ಅದು ಬೇಕು ಅಂತ ಯಾರು ತೆಗೆದು ಆಚೆ ಇಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಿದಾರ ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ಅದು ಮನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿತ್ತು, ಅದನ್ನ ಹೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ಕಡೆ ನಾವು ನೋಡಿದಾಗೆ ಐ ಸಾ ಲಯನ್ಸ್, ಐ ಸಾ ಎಲಿಫೆಂಟ್ಸ್, ಐ ಸಾ ಆಲ್ ದ ಬಿಗ್ ಒನ್ಸ್. ಬಟ್ ಇದು ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಲ್ ಮೂವಿಂಗ್ ಅರೌಂಡ್ ವಿತ್ ಅಸ್. ಸೊ ಎಲ್ಲೂ ನಾಯಿಗಳನ್ನ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಬೆಕ್ಕದ್ ನೋಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ. ಮೇ ಬಿ ಒಂದ್ ಸ್ವಲ್ಪ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಇರಬಹುದಾಗಿತ್ತದು ಅಂತ. ಯಾ, ಮಲ್ಟಿಫೆಸೆಟೆಡ್ ವುಮೆನ್ ಇನ್ ವಿಜಯನಗರ. ಅಂಕಿತಾ, ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟೇಶನ್ ಇತ್ತು. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಲೆವೆಲ್ಸ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಾಟಾ ಹೆಂಗ್ ಬಂದಿದೆ, ಯಾವ ತರ ಮುಂದುವರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಅಂತ. ಬಟ್ ಒಂದ್ ಕಡೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿದಾಗ ಆ ಸ್ಟೇಟಾ ಏನ್ ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದ್ವು ಅವಾಗ, ಅದು ಇವಾಗ್ಲೂ ನಡೀತಿದೆ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಮನ್ಸಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಅದೇ ಸ್ಟೇಟಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೀವಿ, ಬಟ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಲೈಫ್ನ ನಾವೇ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲಿಕೇಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡಿದೀವಿ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ ಅಷ್ಟೇ. ದಟ್ಸ್ ದ ಹೋಲ್ ಥಾಟ್. ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಸೊ ಮಚ್.
ಥ್ಯಾಂಕ್ ಯು ಶ್ರೀ ದತ್ತಾ ಸರ್. ಒಳ್ಳೆ ಕ್ವೆಶ್ಚನ್ ಕೇಳಿದ್ರು. ನಾಯಿ ಬೆಕ್ಕು ಎಲ್ಲಿ ಹೋಯ್ತು, ಯಾಕೆ ತೋರಿಸಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂತ. ಹಿಂಗೆ ಯೋಚನೆ ಮಾಡಿ, ಯಾಕೆ ತೋರಿಸಿಲ್ದೇ ಇರ್ಬೋದು. ಪ್ರಾಬಬ್ಲಿ ಹಿತ್ತಲ ಗಿಡ ಮದ್ದಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ತೋರಿಸಿಲ್ಲ. ಪಕ್ಕದಲ್ಲೇ ಇರುತ್ತಲ್ಲ, ಅದಕ್ಕೆಲ್ಲ ಏನ್ರಿ ಬೆಲೆ ಕೊಡೋದು ಅಂತನಾ ಇರ್ಬೋದೇನೋ, ಗೊತ್ತಿಲ್ಲ. ಲೆಟ್ ಅಸ್ ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅಂಡ್ ನೈಸ್ ಟಾಪಿಕ್ ಟು ಥಿಂಕ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ಇಟ್. ಅಂಡ್ ಇಫ್ ನಾಟ್ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್, ಮೇ ಬಿ ಅ ಫ್ಯೂಚರ್ ಆರ್ಟಿಕಲ್. ಅಲ್ವಾ ಮನೋರಮಾ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್? ಖಂಡಿತ. So with all the fodder for thought, I'm sure all of us have not realized the time. Maybe some of us have, but yes, it is lunch time. So let us take a break now, assemble back at 1:45 to start the last session of paper presentations for the day. Please assemble after that at 1:45.